What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the Friday show, gang. You made it. It's the end of the work week. Happy Friday. Happy Friday late afternoon. If you're still at the office, you're presumably punched out by now. If you're on a Zoom or something, it's probably muted in another window and you're watching this on your computer. Might be on the ride home, might be out at the bar. It'd be weird if you were out at a bar watching this like on your phone while not talking to your friends and coworkers and such, but hey, maybe that's you. Regardless of where you are, what you're up to, welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming to hang out on a Friday evening. We've got a really interesting 9-gamer to talk about. Should be a fun one. Very, very different slates from site to site when it comes to the pitching pricing. Lot to go through. We've got, late-ish kind of a start. Couple minutes late getting started on a 3:30 start time. So I tell you what, let's just dive on in. Say hi to everybody. Cujo Blues here. TGIF back to you, buddy. Aaron Davis is here. Carlos Soto. Anthony Taylor. Mamba's here. Anybody have a good night last night? I know we were all over a lot of different things. My lineup didn't quite get where I wanted it to be, just playing one again, but saw XX Cubs fan was all over the board in both baseball and basketball. I think he finished in a decent spot on the FanDuel tournament, at least in like the big tournament. Not sure where he finished in the high buy-in tournament, if he was in it. I don't think he got there in basketball, but hopefully some people out there want some money. Anyway, as I was saying, really interesting start. Really interesting slate, rather. A lot of, fair mid-range run totals and a lot of really close games other than the game in St. Louis. That's really the only completely lopsided one of these. The first two off the board are kind of lopsided, but you could also realistically see the Tigers getting to the Yankees a little bit. You could certainly see the Angels getting to Bybee under the right circumstances. Probably not. But you could also see that game just playing to a low score because you've got the Guardians at just 4.05 implied runs. The Yankees at 4.17, not the highest implied total for a Yankees lineup. Just 7.5 runs on the board in that one. Reese Olson going for the Tigers. Interesting spot for pitching in that one, perhaps. But we could always see those teams go off. The Tigers have a few interesting left-handed hitters in Yankee Stadium. So I think that one may be a source of underrated potential for DFS. Mamba says he had a 3-1-3, getting closer to the win. Is that what you're saying? I'm not sure if that's a reference, or you're saying third, first, third. First sounds like a win, no? Lone Wolf's here. What's up, Lone Wolf? Lone Wolf hit something, right? You hit a little $500 winner the other day that you posted in Discord. I think I remember seeing that somewhere along the way. It was a couple days ago, maybe. It's in there somewhere. Anyway, congratulations to everybody who is winning. Hit that like button and the subscribe as we get started here. Yeah, there you go. Lone Wolf took down a little tournament. That was a winner-take-all, if I remember right. See, I pay attention. Yeah, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Check out acemind.io, our sim partners, if you need optimizer, a sim product of any kind. Baseball, basketball while it lasts, PGA, MMA, NFL while that's going on. Sure, they're working on a bunch of other stuff. But they've got an optimizer, they got a sim product. If you go check them out at acemind.io, your first days over there your first 3 days are always for free over there. And then when you decide to sign up, use promo code rotoscouts, just like it appears on the screen here. All caps, gets you 20% off your first month. So check those guys out. Helps everybody out. The Angels at the Guardians. So I do think Bybee is a very interesting pitcher on this slate. He's got the Angels checked down to just a 3.04 implied run total, and that is a very bad version of the Angels with no Mike Trout in it. So definitely a good shot for pitching there. But like I said, I could see them playing spoiler. He's been a little bit up and down. He's been very, very good in most of his starts, and he had an excellent year last year. But I think he's a little bit potentially gettable on the right day among the better, more expensive pitchers on this slate as well. Texas at Kansas City, 9-run total in that one, 4.45 run total for Texas, 4.65 for Kansas City. Two of the higher implied totals on the board. Nobody over the 4.79 runs that the Cardinals are getting, which is kind of interesting because we do have a clash of titans at the end of the night, which is also super interesting on this slate. But this one's probably going to be a decent spot to look for some offense with both of those teams at good run totals. Believable opportunity on both sides of that game. The Mariners at the Astros, going to be a really interesting one for pitching. George Kirby going for the Mariners, Ronel Blanco going for the Astros. Both teams pretty low totals overall, 8-run total in the game, very close line, 3.99 implied runs for the Mariners. They're showing a little bit of home run upside. It's partly based on Blanco's performance last year in the amount in 40 some odd innings. Gave up some home runs in that. There's a little bit in the history, but he's been pitching really well. Not sure if I fully buy in yet, despite the results. And then on the Astros side of things, going up against an excellent pitcher, a 4.08 implied total for them. They're slightly favored, which I find surprising, but just home field advantage taking precedence there. The Red Sox and the Twins, 3.88 implied total for the Red Sox. I think that one is potentially a little bit low. I'm kind of surprised to see that one where it is. On the Twin side, 4.20 implied total. That one feels a little bit high to me. There wasn't a pitching change there, was there? And that line swung, I feel like, and I'm kind of surprised. The Twins have over since like April 15th, they lead baseball with 94 runs scored. So they have been scoring, but Tanner Houck has been excellent this season and like with justifiably good stuff and reason to believe that it's real. I'm kind of surprised that that's swung in this direction with the Twins at 4.20 and the Red Sox at 3.88 going up against Chris Paddock, who is entirely gettable. So that's a little bit of a weird one just in the Vegas line. I think we could definitely extract some value out of the top end of the Red Sox. It's just with the injuries with Casas and Yoshida both hurt. They're a little bit top heavy in that lineup, but I think for DFS purposes, at least top 4, top 5, depending on what they roll out there, totally playable. The White Sox, the worst team in baseball, sitting at a 2.82 implied total. If anybody's going to ruin everybody's day, it's going to be the White Sox going up against Sonny Gray, who can and has at times ruined days, but he's been spectacular to start the season. He's got he's the reason that the Cardinals are massively favored. The Cardinals' offense has not been that much better than the White Sox. The White Sox are like dead last in baseball for runs, and the Cardinals are third worst. It's all in the article. But both of these teams have been bad for run scoring. The Cardinals are worst in the league for home runs. I think the White Sox are second worst in the league for home runs. But the Cards are drawing a 4.79 implied total out of this 7.5 run total in this game. They're facing a totally gettable pitcher, and they've underperformed. There are good hitters in that lineup. There are good veteran hitters. There are good young hitters in that lineup. They've just by and large underperformed. But Sonny Gray is the story here. I mean, he's got major upside. He's also very, very expensive on the FanDuel slate. Again, a lot of back and forth pricing differences on this slate. We'll look at it in a second. Padres at the Diamondbacks, 4.61 implied total for the Pods, 4.49 implied total for the Diamondbacks. Another spot of potential source of offense in a fairly close game with a high tied for the highest run total on the board. 3 games at 9. This one, the Dodgers and the Braves, and then that Texas-Kansas City game. So definitely another spot to consider for offense. You do have Dylan Cease going for the Padres, though. It's believable with the Diamondbacks at 4.49-ish runs, but it's one of those spots where I could see it being fairly realistic around 4 or 5 runs, between 3 and 5, let's call it, if you run it 100 times. But I don't think he trends into being blown up too many times by them. So it's an interesting spot given where those totals are. Slate Ciccone going for the Diamondbacks might get a little bit popular. Could be an interesting spot to look at. The Marlins and the Athletics, an 8-run total in this one. Another clash of some low-end teams. We had the Marlins and the Rockies earlier in the week. Now we've got the Marlins and the A's. A's have been playing a little bit better baseball. There's a couple interesting bats in that one to attack Ryan Weathers with. He's had a couple interesting starts, but I don't really think this is the spot for him. And overall, he's really not that good. I really don't buy into anything he's done. JP Sears on the Athletic side, I think is justifiably interesting here. I think he's probably popular. I haven't really explored ownership. I'll pull it up, check where he's at. But he's interesting here. Going up against the Marlins, he's better than he's performed overall this season. He's had good DFS starts in the past, including a couple times this year already. He's got a little bit of upside. We're going to talk about him. 3.69 implied total for the Marlins for a reason. So that's going to be a real make or break kind of a value pitching spot. And then the last game of the night, Charlie Morton going for the Braves, Gavin Stone for the Dodgers. Both teams at mid fours, 4.51 for the Braves, 4.58. Basically an even up kind of a game. And again, like I said, Clash of the Titans. I don't know that we're getting to either pitcher in this one. If I have to go to one, it's obviously going to be Charlie Morton over Gavin Stone. But why tangle with the Dodgers? Why tangle with the Braves at all? I just want bats from that game. So looks like a good one to end the night with. That one's at 10:10. The two games immediately above it are at 9:40. Then it's a bunch of 8 o'clocks and 7 o'clocks above that. So it's fun staggering with that game coming late. Agreed, Lone Wolf. Sears best pay down. We'll take a look at that right now. Let's do it by DK. We'll also make sure nobody's screwy. Everything looks correct. Yeah, everything looks fine. So Sonny Gray sitting at the top of the board, 11-5 on FanDuel, 10-1 on DraftKings. Most expensive pitcher on both sites. He's been tremendous. We've got a long track record of success with Sonny Gray. We've also had, as I said, we've had our ups and downs with Sonny Gray. But that is a really, really bad White Sox lineup. I know they've gotten us a few times because it's going to be something that we say every single day when they're on a slate. So there will be days every week or every couple of weeks where they get us. We'll lose slates to this White Sox team on days where they have those eight-run outbursts. There will be days where they score 4 and just ruin a good pitcher's day at a very high price, which is what's more on the board for Sonny Gray today. But overall, even at price, he checks out. He's got the upside. He's been pitching dynamite so far this season, and he's just good over time. So it's very, very believable at the top of the board. Tanner Bybee, 9,400 against the Angels. Great price on FanDuel. Projects out great. Definitely a low-end version of the Angels lineup. They're just scuffling along. There's a couple of hot young hitters. There's a couple of hot young hitters in that lineup. Hey, there's a couple of hot hitters in that lineup like Joe Adell, but overall, not that solid a lineup. He's just 8,500 on the DraftKings slate. But even better than that, George Kirby is just 7,800 on the DraftKings slate, which is just a little bit silly. He's 96 on the FanDuel slate. It's a bit of a matchup discount against Houston because Houston, despite their win-loss record, as I'll keep on saying until they turn it around, they're a much better baseball team than that, and their lineup has not really underperformed. It's their pitching staff that's mostly let them down. So there's a lot of good hitters in that Houston lineup. It's a dangerous spot for Kirby, but at 7,800, he's at a major discount on DraftKings for his talent. Tanner Houck, laughable price difference. 11-3 on FanDuel. That's very high for Tanner Houck, but he's been pitching well enough to deserve it. It's just, how much do you really want to buy in? He's probably more justifiably in the low 10s. It seems like FanDuel's pushing the ceiling up a little bit price-wise with some of these pitchers this year, or maybe it's just slate to slate. They've also created a big haves, have-not kind of a gap there between some of these pitchers on this slate. But on DraftKings, Tanner Houck is only 8,100. Again, the Twins have led baseball over the last 15, 18 days, whatever it's been, with 94 runs since April 15th. But they're still the Twins. I mean, it's a middling baseball team. They've got some strikeouts in that lineup. Highly gettable for a pitcher who I believe in some of the changes with Tanner Houck. I believe it's real. Marcus Stroman, 9,700, 8,800 on DraftKings. Totally playable on either site. Just a bunch of good lefties in that, or a few good lefties with power in that Detroit lineup. Stroman doesn't give up a lot of home runs, but when he makes mistakes, they do tend to travel. Not my favorite starter. Moderate strikeout upside most of the time, but can spike a big game for here and there. I wouldn't be surprised either way with Stroman. I think the projection is right where it needs to be. I think the pricing is fine. I could see him having a day, and I could see him getting tagged a little bit here. So he's right in the middle for me. Ronel Blanco is really interesting. 10-8 is just a big, big price for him on FanDuel. Like I said, I don't totally believe, but we know how bad that Mariners lineup has been. We know that there are a ton of strikeouts in that Mariners lineup. He's got enough stuff to get there. So I wouldn't want to pay 10-8, especially with some of these other options on the board, especially the guys in the 9s that project out higher than him. But he's capable enough, and that lineup's bad enough that he could definitely succeed. At 8,200 on DraftKings, he's really, really interesting in that spot. It's a completely different play from site to site. I think he's very much on the board at 82. I think you could do something like him and Houck together in a lineup for 81 and 82, just as, considering both SP1s. Same thing with Kirby at just 78. Same thing with Bybee at just 85. All of these pitchers are very, very fairly priced on DraftKings today. JP Sears, as we pointed out at the beginning, 7,900 on FanDuel, 6,100 on DraftKings, especially on DraftKings. Very, very cheap. Let's do Dylan Cease first. At 11,000 on FanDuel, Dylan Cease is very expensive. It's a tough matchup against a good Diamondbacks team. He's got a lower projection and I think a bigger basement, bigger floor, whatever you want to call it, than some of the other top end starters on the slate. But I think he's got an equivalent ceiling, if not a higher ceiling, than basically every other starter on the slate. So I don't rule Dylan Cease out just because he's projected a couple points behind these guys in the median. I think his top end scores are rival everybody else on the slate, if not exceed it. It's just he's very, very expensive, and your average is going to be in between. At 93 on DraftKings, he just kind of fits in with some of these 7s and 8s guys. He's good enough to justify that price difference between some of these guys. So no issues with it, just a tough spot. Now the next guy, Slate Ciccone, is a $6,600 pitcher on the DraftKings slate and a $10,100 pitcher somehow on the FanDuel slate. He's been effective. He's been fine in small samples, but that seems really, really high. At 66, it's very low. Maybe the truth is somewhere in between. But I think you can definitely buy in here, and this is weird to me that he's that high priced. Paddock, I think, could find some success at 73-63 against the Red Sox. They're a good enough team, and they still have a good top end of that lineup. He's been a little up and down, but there's enough there that maybe at price. With Weathers against Oakland, like I said, I don't love it, but he's had a couple effective starts, so at 6,000, he's in that bargain bin. There's a very solid bargain bin with these 4 guys in the 6s on DraftKings. If you're building a lot of lineups, you can just rotate those guys through value spots at SP2, most particularly Sears, but these other guys as well, and generate a lot of high-end lineups just given that many value options. And if one of them connects, you should be looking pretty good. Reese Olson against the Yanks definitely has upside. 8,100, 7,400. Yet to give up a home run this season. He's a pretty good pitcher. Just doesn't project out great. It's the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. He hasn't been dynamite this season, but he also hasn't been bad outside of, I think, one start. Charlie Morton against the Dodgers is just kind of a no. Gavin Stone against the Braves is a pretty big no. Jose Soriano against Cleveland. I just don't think there's a lot of depth there. He has good strikeout numbers, but Cleveland's the kind of team that's going to get him, I think. As we talk about from time to time with Cleveland, just with their nature of how they go about playing the game, hit tool oriented, station to station, low strikeout. Doesn't seem like the Jose Soriano spot. Michael Lorenzen, Brady Singer, and Brad Keller, most especially in probably a 3-inning start, are big no's. So that's your rundown, and we're going to do it all again in long form. Yeah, Aaron Davis is saying, I don't play FanDuel, but that's crazy high for that guy. But Ciccone doesn't walk anybody. Fairly impressive 5 career walks in 39 innings. Yeah, like I said, he's been good. I am less quibbling with the talent than I'm just stunned by that FanDuel price after a very small sample. But, to skip well ahead, he faced that bad Seattle team, struck out 8, gave up 1 earned run, and went 6 innings. He's gone 6 innings in both his starts, quality start in both starts, 3 strikeouts against San Francisco. It just seems like a major, major price jump, kind of out of nowhere. And on a slate with like a lot of guys that are like George Kirby at 96 is a significantly better pitcher. I'm pretty confident. Tanner Bybee, I'm pretty sure, is a better pitcher in these, especially his matchup. It's just weird. It's more weird than saying like he's bad and undeserving, but I'm not sure that he's deserving. Lone Wolf saying, be careful with Kirby. What I love about Kirby, is Sears in my placeholder? Of course he is. Lone Wolf knows me well. Do I have my article up? No. Article's up on the site for free. Gets written most slates outside of when we have like a 10 o'clock in the morning or noon start time, whatever it was the other day. When there's enough time to write an article, I usually knock it out. and it's up on the website today, breaking down all this stuff in written form, and you can take your time with it. We've got a little bit of time to read it. It is quite long. But what I was going to say about George Kirby is, and it's gone around a lot since his last start in a bunch of tweets, in his major league career, he started 62 games. Over those 62 games, he's walked 45 batters. That is spectacular command. He's really, really good. 3% walk rate this year, 28.4% strikeout rate over 32 and a third, 6 starts. He's terrific. It's just a really, really tough matchup with Houston on the other side. They don't strike out a lot. They have 3 superstar hitters at the top of the lineup with Altuve, Tucker, and Jordan Alvarez. So very challenging matchup. I think it's one of those maybe collisions in the middle, but we'll get there. First out of the gate, this one, 8,800, 9,700. Again, it's a fair enough price for Marcus Stroman. He's not bad. We know we can get there from time to time on strikeouts. He's at 23.2% strikeout so far this season, but a 10.9% walk, 3.69 ERA, 3.74 xFIP, 92.55 stuff. Plus is never really going to love Marcus Stroman, but he effectively keeps the ball down. He's good at taking the bat out of the other team's hands, inducing a lot of ground balls, 4.5 degree average launch angle so far this season. He's very good at inducing light contact, 33.7% hard hits this year. Last year, the hard hits were up a little bit. The exit velo is up a little bit, but still just a 1.57% home run rate, 5% barrels, 3 degree average launch. He was perfectly fine. So I think Stroman, like I said, I could see it going either way. Most of the time we're going to land decisively in the middle like this. He's got a decent shot at a win here. Yanks in Yankee Stadium against Olsen, the favored team. So for the DraftKings price especially, with a shot at a win bonus, no issues with it. He completed the 6th inning in both of his first two starts. He pitched into the 6th inning in his 4th and 5th start. Only went 4 in the most recent one. He's given up a bunch of earned runs in the last few starts. 4 last time, only struck out 4, walked 5 against Milwaukee. That was the one where he only went 4 innings. Then he came out after 5 and a third against Oakland and against Toronto. Struck out 9 Athletics, gave up 3 runs on 7 hits. That's a typical Stroman high-end start when you get those 9 strikeouts. He had a 7 strikeout game against Miami earlier in the season. That was a 5-inning game, but he gave up 4 runs. He typically does give up a few runs, give up a few hits. If you're not getting the depth, if he's not going 6, not booking you the quality start, for 9,700 on FanDuel, it does seem a little bit thin. You get a lot of days where he tops out around this 31, even if he is getting strikeouts, because he doesn't necessarily hit that bonus. So it becomes a little bit more challenging for the FanDuel price. I think he's a lot more on the board at the SP2 price or at the DK price, a high price SP2 or a discounted SP1, I guess, is the qualifier there. But he checks out better at that price for me. Reese Olson just going to be challenged by the Yankees. Decent pitcher. Stuff Plus doesn't love him either, but like I said, hasn't given up a home run yet this season. He's made 5 starts, thrown 28 and a third innings. He had a clunker against Pittsburgh. At Pittsburgh, he gave up 6 earned runs, struck out 3, walked 3, just lasted 4 and a third. Since then, he went 6 and a third with 8 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 earned run on 6 hits against Texas. Faced Minnesota, struck out 4, walked 2, gave up 2 earned, 4 total runs on 5 hits over 5. Struck out 8, walked 3, gave up an earned run on 3 hits in 7 innings against the Royals. It's been up and down a little bit, but the price is right for just a value play, at least for a few shares if you're building out a bunch of lineups. It's a high-end Yankees lineup with a low strikeout rate, but we've seen them have those games before where they're just up there flailing. Even if they're being patient, they're just, striking out on called strikes. Olsen doesn't exactly rocket up the board projection-wise. It's just a dice roll, and you do have better options in the bargain bin. But for a few shares, I think it's okay. On FanDuel at 81, he is one of the more talented, low-priced pitchers, let's say. In a vacuum, he probably is a better pitcher than J.P. Sears, or at worst, they're comparable. Much worse matchup. But for the $200 price difference, I think these guys are easily interchangeable parts on the FanDuel slate, with Olsen having a bigger basement, but they have similar upside. On the right day, Olsen could come out and find 7-8 strikeouts, pitch 6 clean innings against this Yankees team. Book the quality start. They get to Stroman a little bit, even if it's just for a few runs, win the game for him. I can see a realistic path to success for the money. 7,400 is cheap on DraftKings, 8,100 on FanDuel. You do have that path to success. Overall, a 21.1% strikeout rate, a 3.18 ERA, which is good. A 4.21 xFIP is higher and probably more honest, but not bad. He's given up 43.4% hard hits and 89.1 miles an hour of exit velo, but again, no home runs, just an 8.8 degree average launch angle. Somebody outside has... Yeah. Somebody... I thought it was maybe Joker snoring like through his nose for a minute, but I think somebody outside, the windows open in the other room, has like a whistle, like a lifeguard's whistle. There's some sort of weird repeating whistling noise going on. It's really irritating. We're going to hope that ends. So jumping into the lineups, let's start with the Tigers. Like I said, a few respectable left-handed power bats. Let's see if we got the confirmed. Yeah, we do. Confirmed is Green, Kana, Winslow Perez, Kerry Carpenter, Colt Keith jumping the lineup a little bit. All right, so it's different. Let's pop it in real quick since it's the first game. We'll get the pace going, don't worry. All right, so Carpenter, Colt Keith moves up to that spot. Veerling is not in the lineup. Torkelson, what is it, Zach McKinstry? I think. Javier Baez and Jake Rogers. It is Zach McKinstry. All right, so for the Tigers, again, you get Riley Green at the top of the lineup. 7 home runs on the season, a 266 ISO. Solid left-handed hitter, easily their best bat overall. You get Winslow Perez, who hits from both sides of the plate. He's got 3 home runs and 52 plate appearances with a 298 ISO. Limited premium contact, 8.3% barrels isn't bad, but 30.6% hard hits. But again, we're talking about a very, very small sample of batted ball events when we get down to that level. The 3 home runs, the 298, 365, 596, the ISO, the run WRC plus, all look pretty solid for the price as a kid who will be hitting left-handed a little bit here in Yankee Stadium. Again, Stroman hard to homer against, but if we're looking for power, lefties in Yankee Stadium are a definite source of upside, given that short porch, the way that the ball just needs to casually fly out to right field and it can get out of the ballpark. Kerry Carpenter's got good lefty pop, 11.4% barrels, 44.3% hard hits. He's got 3 homers on the season, off to a 269, 310, 462 start. Creating runs 18% better than average. Colt Keith has been an abomination so far. 160, 225, 181, a .021 ISO, a 17 WRC plus, 2,300, 2,500 across sites. Kid's got a lot of talent. It just hasn't come through at the major league level yet. The best thing he's done is limit strikeouts, 17.6%, drawing an okay walk rate. Got sent back down by somebody in the Dynasty League just this week, but might need a little bit more seasoning in real life. Right now, they're rolling him out there every day or most days. And he's moved up in the batting order. So for the money, if you're going to the Tigers, I don't think you skip him. I think you just ride on the talent and you just hope that for the discount you get a good day from him. He's definitely in play if you're going to this team. Spencer Torkelson having a rough start to the season. No home runs and 128 plate appearances after a very good year for power last year. 14.1% barrels and 50.5% hard hits last year. Down to just 2.3% and 35.2% hard hits over 128 plate appearances this year. .079 ISO and a 73 WRC plus. I'm still a buyer on the upside for the rest of the season, but 4,000 and 4,200 is a very good price. But it's been bad so far this year, and we had the full bad year as a rookie that was so concerning. So one real good year in between. I do believe in the talent. I think the price is right. But again, it's not a great spot in terms of the opposing pitcher and what he does on the mound. If anything, I'm looking for the lefties to maybe sneak some home run power. And more than anything, you're probably looking for a game where you need a team to play a little bit of sequencing type baseball and create runs, which is more the top end of the lineup. I think I skipped over Mark Canha because he's right-handed, but no reason to skip him in stacks. He's been off to a really good start. He's a veteran hitter. He's got a little bit of power, 5 home runs on the season, a 228 ISO so far, making pretty good contact or typical Mark Canha kind of contact at the plate. He's never expensive, 4,600, 3,200. He won't be the go-to option for everybody on this slate. So at 156 WRC plus, he's a nice addition to stacks from the top of the lineup. Definitely somebody who can frustrate Stroman with his ability to get on base and be part of that sequencing that I was referring to. Zach McKinstry, Javier Baez, and Jake Rogers at the bottom of the lineup. Kind of weak. 50 plate appearances have been not great for McKinstry. Baez has been even worse, over 97 plate appearances. And Jake Rogers does have sneaky right-handed power, but probably doesn't play great in this ballpark and doesn't do much else other than hit home runs. On the Yankees side, Volpe, Soto, Judge, Verdugo, Stanton, Rizzo, Torres, Austin Wells, Ozzy Cabrera. It's basically the everyday lineup these days for the Yanks with the interchangeable catchers. I do still believe that Austin Wells is the better hitter out of the two Yankees catchers, despite Jose Trevino off to an okay start. Wells just has one home run and a stolen base with an 85 WRC plus, and he's slashing 185, 324, 278. But I know he's a better hitter than that. Last year, he was all right in his cup of coffee. He hit 4 home runs in his 75 plate appearances. Never going to hit for much average, I don't think, but a little bit of power. 257 ISO last year with an excellent contact profile. So far this year, a 12.8% barrel rate is intact. The hard hits just haven't been there, but scuffling along a little bit, but only striking out at a 13.2% rate so far. Drawing walks at a 17.6% clip. Just been a little bit unlucky. So I like the upside for Austin Wells. If you're stacking Yankees, is just a weird starting point down in the 8th spot. Very cheap catcher. Maybe somebody to keep in mind, as we've discussed a bunch of times. I prefer to get my catcher one-offs from up here if I'm rostering catcher one-offs. But maybe somebody to keep in mind just for some sneaky power upside. Not that Reese Olson, again, has been all that gettable for power. If anybody's going to hit home runs against this guy, it's probably one of these two guys. Maybe this guy right here. Juan Soto out to a fantastic start. 331, 441, 589, 258 ISO. Creating runs 94% better than average. 8 home runs, 4 stolen bases. Just does everything amazingly well. Aaron Judge does everything amazingly well, but not really so far this year. 197 ISO is all right, but it's low for Judgy. 200 is usually like the good to great kind of a line. So he's right there, but usually he's way above 200. More importantly, he's usually way above a 197 batting average after 149 plate appearances. A 331 on base is also a little bit low. He is still sitting at a 111 WRC plus. He does still have a 13.1% barrel rate, 54.8% hard hit rate. Those are both down over last year. Down over the year before. But I don't think we're that lost. I don't think, there's people saying, oh, we're going to find out at some point he's playing hurt and blah, blah, blah. I just think it's a slow start. It's 149 plate appearances. I'm not hitting the panic button. I don't think there's anything wrong. Strikeouts are right around where they've been. Walks are down a little bit. Maybe scuffling a little bit, trying to, press and get there. But his price is down a little on FanDuel. 3,800. 61 still on DraftKings. Still expensive. Volpe, pretty decent leadoff option. 3 home runs, 7 stolen bases. He's been up and down so far this season, but getting on at a 345 clip so far. Creating runs 17% better than average. A little power, a little speed. A capable enough option, and he's good as a one-off. 4,700, 3,200 across sites at shortstop. Getting a leadoff hitter from a lineup that should go around a few times, and a guy who's in one of the best spots in baseball in terms of the support behind him in a lineup with Soto and Judge there. It's an interesting enough player that I don't dislike Volpe. I like him in stacks. I think he's a consideration as a one-off. Verdugo in the cleanup spot, very, very cheap, 3,700, 2,900. He's got 4 home runs, a 134 WRC plus. He's been good. Not my favorite hitter on the club, but very low strikeout, 8.1% strikeouts, 12.9% walk rate, hitting for a little bit of power, a lefty in Yankee Stadium. Says enough. Stanton just still clobbers everything he comes into contact with. 6 home runs on the season, a 223 ISO, creating runs 11% better than average. He's doing what they're asking him to do. So perfectly fine for 4,500, 3,100, one of the better upsides for power for a cheap price. Anthony Rizzo, 3,900, 3,100, up to 254, 319, 405, kind of turning things back around. 112 WRC plus, up to 5 homers. Things are starting to look better for Riz. Glaber hit his first home run of the season yesterday. He's got 3 stolen bases. He's been bad, but I fully believe that he's going to turn it around. And then Ozzy Cabrera has been good, including his 4th home run of the season, but I still don't believe really at all. So a little bit 4 cornersy, or a little bit you could stay away from everything. Stroman, especially at 88, is playable on DraftKings. 97 is definitely high for what the perceived ceiling is. Reese Olson is affordable on both sites. I think you can gamble on some Reese Olson shares on either site. There are better bargain bin SP2s on DraftKings in terms of lower prices, but he's the most talented guy in that group. Tigers bats, I think you can grab a few shares, particularly some of the lefty power against Stroman, but it's not a great spot considering how much he typically limits home runs. Yankees bats definitely on the board against Reese Olson. Yep, Houston is low strikeout, absolutely. Kirby is very good. Fairly high strikeout, doesn't walk anybody, but yeah, could be one of those things where it's just kind of a collision in the middle and he doesn't have a monster ceiling game. We'll get there. That game's coming up later. For now, the Angels and the Guardians. Let's see if we got the Angels lineup in. Gonna trim my beard when I have to go like that. Make that noise into the microphone to get the water to stop dripping off of my upper lip. I know it's time to trim my beard. Jose Soriano on the mound for the Angels. 7,200, 7,500 across sites. He's very cheap. He comes with a little bit of strikeout potential. Last year in relief, 42 innings of relief work, he had a 30.3% strikeout rate, but a 12.4% walk rate. Very, very high. 3.64 ERA, 3.80 xFIP, 14.8% swinging, 33.9% CSW. There's some tremendous strike throwing numbers there. So far in his 4 starts, his 22 2/3 innings this season, a 4.76 ERA with a 4.41 xFIP, a 23% strikeout rate. That's a big dip, 10.8% swinging, down to a 27.9% CSW, still walking 14%. He's been a very, very different pitcher. He's given up a 13.6% barrel rate. That's weird. Those numbers don't go well together. Well, I'm not going to take the time to check that launch angle. I don't know why that wouldn't be searching against a different column just for him. That's weird. A 0-degree average launch angle is weird with a 13.6% barrel rate, 3% home runs, 42.4% hard hits. But the barrels are the important part of that, and the fact that he's given up some home runs, obviously some runs, the strikeouts are way down, and the strike throwing is way down, while the walks are consistent and high. I think he's just gettable here. I think it's just a really good matchup for the Guardians in terms of the kind of pitcher they can definitely exploit. They've got a 7.4% walk rate, but everybody in this lineup, among the good hitters in this lineup, does know how to draw a walk against a pitcher like this. So while that's not overly high, they're very, very talented, and they're also extremely talented at limiting strikeouts, which is what we always talk about with this team. With the low walk rates, they're very, very good at putting the ball in play when they want to, and that's how they typically go about winning games, is playing station to station, putting the ball in play, finding base hits, hitting doubles, driving each other in, stealing some bases. Everybody in this lineup's got stolen bases. We've got an average of 3 stolen bases apiece for the 9-man lineup with a high of 5. So everybody's running in this lineup. Most of these guys can hit for a little bit of power. A couple of these guys are table setters. Steven Kwan has 3 home runs, but just a 147 ISO, a 3.4% barrel rate, and a 16.9% hard hit rate because he's a table setter. He strikes out just 7.9% of the time, and walks at a 6.5% clip, which means everything is in play. When those are dropping in for him and he's getting on base, he's a dynamite option. And he's been tremendous over the last 10 days. He's been really, really good for them. 160 WRC plus. They, as a segment on Chris Russo's High Heat show yesterday, I was laughing at it because they hilariously brought up Steven Kwan as, is Steven Kwan in the MVP conversation? And all right, for one, it's May 2nd yesterday. And for another, this is Steven Kwan. Let's put this start in perspective and what he does in perspective. But for DFS purposes, at 4,800, 3,200 at the top of this lineup, when I expect them to have a pretty productive day against Jose Soriano here, he's definitely an interesting part of stacks. So while I don't think that he's going to be hitting 20 home runs this year, I don't think that he's going to be in the MVP conversation, certainly, I do think he's a very capable correlated scoring play for DFS. So he's interesting. Andres Jimenez, 1 home run, 4 stolen bases, a 362 on base so far. Playing really well, 121 WRC plus. Not hitting for a ton of power yet, but I think that comes around a little bit. I'm basing that more on faith and, original prospect pedigree than I am on the last couple years' results in terms of his barrel rate, his hard hits. 2 years ago, 37.6% hard hits, 6.2% barrels. That's fine. But he doesn't strike out either way. He doesn't really draw a ton of walks. But again, another hitter who's capable of drawing walks, a little bit below league average, but certainly can get there. He's got a good eye at the plate. Jose Ramirez, 5,800, 3,900, scuffling along, just 240, 281, 416, a 95 WRC plus, a 176 ISO, 5 home runs, 4 stolen bases. He's still pricey for that production, but he's not really pricey. He's correctly priced at worst for who he's been over the last handful of seasons. So no issues with going to Jose Ramirez. He's also just striking out 11.9% of the time. He walked at a 10.6% clip last year. Kwan, by the way, was at 9.7, so he's down a little bit in walks. Ramirez is definitely down in walks. Josh Naylor's up a little bit from the 6.7% last year. Strikeouts are in line with what he did, down a little bit from 13.7 all the way down to 12.5%. He's been terrific this year, 261, 344, 514. He's got a 252 ISO. He's created runs 40% better than average, hitting the ball pretty hard. Doesn't cost all that much at $5,000, $3,700. Pretty good option at first base. Will Brennan's been fairly productive, over 90 plate appearances, 4 home runs, 2 steals, a 108 WRC plus. Very small sample, but he's really, really cheap. It's not like we're going over the top for somebody who's priced up by any means. Easy enough to get to. Tyler Freeman, 3,100, 2,800. Hasn't been all that productive. Does have 3 homers, 3 steals in 99 plate appearances, but an 87 WRC plus, and that hit tool that's supposed to be there hasn't really come around at all. 198, 293, 349 so far. Believable enough upside for Freeman. At the price, I like him best as a second baseman, I think, on the FanDuel slate for 2,800. In the outfield for 31 or at third base on FanDuel, I don't like him as much. But I do think there's believable upside there. In the small sample, we do have a 50.7% hard hit rate, 8.7% barrels. Maybe a little bit of bad luck for a kid who was once one of their top prospects. Bo Naylor, catcher power, but has been kind of weak so far this season. Gabriel Arias, a little bit of power, a little bit of speed, but has not been great yet this year. And then Rocio mostly here for defense. So on that alignment, it's kind of a no, but I get it if you want to roll a few dice on Soriano, most particularly on DraftKings at 72. It's just he hasn't really been there as a starter. I don't think he's necessarily cut out for the starting role. Stuff Plus does like the arsenal, but I think that just works better, and he had demonstrable success out of the bullpen last year despite the high walk rates. So I don't know. Might just be one of those guys who's better in that kind of a role. But we'll keep an eye on him as the year goes along. There's not uninteresting talent involved. Just hasn't really gotten there as a starter. The outings this year had a 7 strikeout game with 3 walks, gave up 3 runs, but they were all unearned over 6 innings against Cincinnati at Cincinnati. Had a 6 strikeout game with 1 earned run, struck out 6 of 20 Rays at Tampa Bay, only went 5 in that one. In his most recent start against Minnesota, just less than an inning and 2/3, gave up 4 earned, struck out 1 walk, 3 hits, faced just 12 hitters. I'm not sure what happened there. That's awfully quick hook if that was just all it was. Anybody know? Did he come out with it? It was just a few days ago, on the 27th. Did he come out with an injury or anything? Or was it just a quick hook? Went just 3 innings, and 4 innings in his first 3 starts of the season. Did strike out 6 in the 4-inning start. That was also against Tampa Bay. Gave up 4 earned runs in that one, though. So I just don't think we're fully there yet. Tanner Bybee, I definitely think we're fully there as a starter. He was very good last year as a rookie. 25 starts, 142 innings, 24.1% strikeouts, 2.98 ERA with a 4.22 xFIP. Was very good at limiting home runs. 11.1% swinging strike. This year, that's up to 12.1% in the small sample. He's got a 3.45 ERA with a 3.79 xFIP, 26.3% strikeouts. Walks are a little high at 9%, but that's more small sample to me than a problem. 10.6% barrels, that's up a little bit, but just 3.01% home runs. We're talking about 4 home runs. He gave up 1 home run in each of 4 starts across the 4 starts in the middle. Didn't give up a home run in the first one to Oakland. Didn't give up a home run, probably most importantly, to the Braves in his most recent start. That was a dominant 7 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 9 strikeouts, no walks game. He was really good in that one. The Oakland game, he went just 5 2/3. He struck out 8, walked 2, but gave up a homer, 2 earned runs. I think it was at a spot where he was pretty popular for DFS on us and went a little bit kablooey. I know we owned him in the White Sox game back on April 10th. Struck out just 2, walked 3, gave up 5 earned on 6 hits to the White Sox in 4 1/3. That was his worst start of the year. It was on April 10th. I think Lou Bob was still there, but I'm not totally sure. But otherwise, has been mostly good and has a lot of upside. So I like Tanner Bybee. I love the matchup for him. Even with a 21.9% strikeout rate for these hitters, that includes Cole Tucker at 11.1% over 9. So if we exclude him, we're already looking at 23.2. 17.6 for Nolan Chanuel, but he's just been atrocious otherwise. 16% for Luis Rengifo. He's been good, but is not a star by any means, not a threatening hitter overall. The guys who hit for power in this lineup, Joe Dell, Taylor Ward, Brandon Drury, in theory, Logan O'Hoppe, Mickey Moniak, and then Zach Neto's just kind of high strikeout. That group is at 25.3. So there's a lot of gettable spots for strikeouts in here. And then the guys who don't strike out a lot aren't exactly hitting for a much average, not getting on base a ton. Shanuel at 227, 317, a .08 ISO, 84 WRC plus, 2 home runs on the season and 102 plate appearances. He really hasn't been good. Joe Adell's been on fire. No denying that. 68 plate appearances, 290, 338, 565. He's got 4 homers, 5 stolen bases, 274 ISO, 152 WRC plus. It's been the best 68 plate appearances of his career in the majors. He's supposed to be something like that guy. 15.6% barrels, 53.3% hard hits. It would just be the Angels' luck if he finally came around just as Mike Trout exited the lineup for a while. Taylor Ward, 4,900, 3,500. He's got 7 home runs, a 126 WRC plus, a 214 ISO. He's been their best hitter overall this season. 14.4% barrels, 48.5% hard hits, strikes out at a 22.4% clip, doesn't walk that much. 4,935. If you're going to this lineup, he belongs in your stacks, but he's not really a reason to worry about Tanner Bybee. Brandon Drury at 33.24 has just been awful this year. 176, 245, 235, a 40 WRC plus. Very, very gettable. Not the worst for strikeouts, 19.1% so far this year, but last year, 26% over a full season. Drury is a fairly high strikeout player, so there's another reason to believe in a little bit more hidden strikeout potential here for Bybee. Rengifo, 2 home runs on the season, 267, 327, 400. Again, not a fearsome hitter. Or excuse me, that was O'Hoppe. Rengifo's at 326, 376, 465. Thank you. 142 WRC plus. He's been good. 9 stolen bases on the season. It's O'Hoppe that had that line. He's got 2 home runs. They both have 2 homers. But Rengifo, again, not a tremendous power bat. Somebody who probably needs a little bit of help from his friends to really provide any kind of major upside for DFS on most slates. Does fit into multiple positions for cheap pricing. He is somebody that I'll use as like that utility, that Swiss Army knife type player. But again, not a reason to worry about Tanner Bybee. O'Hoppe's got plenty of swing and miss. Cole Tucker last year in a small sample, 20% strikeout rate, 10% walk rate. This year, just 9 plate appearances so far. Last year, it was 10 plate appearances. Year before, 63 plate appearances. Hasn't done much in the majors. Yet to homer in any of those games. Moniak, former first overall pick, has never really delivered in the show outside of a hot start over a stretch last year. 1 home run, 143, 194, 206 over 67 plate appearances this year. Zach Neto hasn't been that good either. 2 home runs, 4 stolen bases, and 87 WRC plus. Just seems like a great spot for Bybee. So it's Bybee a big yes, especially on DraftKings. That price is just way low at 8,500 for this matchup. Terrific opportunity on DraftKings there. Soriano, you're just rolling dice in a bad spot, I think, with a pitcher who hasn't been good in a starting role. I would definitely consider the Guardians, especially for some pretty good value pricing. Seems like a spot where they can really succeed against this pitcher. So I like their bats here. And then the Angels' bats only like as a hedge to Bybee if you feel the need, but not a good team, not a good option. Come for the DFS content, stay for the beard ASMR. Fanatic saying Trout went on the IL, or is that old news? No, we know. That was big news, and yeah, it's old news, but it's important to discuss. Rangers and the Royals. Let's see if we got these. Royals is in where I can just copy paste it. We'll grab that one. Michael Lorenzen as a starting point. 6 innings in each of his last 2 starts. Did strike out 7, but walked 3, gave up 3 earned with a home run on 3 hits to the Braves. Went 6 against Cincinnati, gave up 5 earned, a home run, struck out just 3, walked 1. First start of the year, struck out 4, but walked 5, gave up 3 hits in 5 innings at Detroit. I just don't think it's a good spot. As discussed at the top of the show, this is one of the higher total games. It's one of 3 games at a 9. These are 2 teams that were cut kind of evenly in the mid-4, like 4.5 range, which is our high side for runs outside of the outlier Cardinals at like 4.7 something. So these are 2 of the more appealing spots, I think, for bats. I'm much more inclined to take some Royals bats against Michael Lorenzen. Overall, it amounts to 17 innings at 20.3%. Strikeout rate, 4.24 ERA, a 4.41 xFIP, a 13%. Walk rate, hasn't really given up many barrels, not many home runs, but Stuff Plus doesn't really like him over the small sample. Last year in 153 innings, 4.18 ERA with a 4.68 xFIP, just a 17.8% strikeout rate. Wasn't atrocious for walks. The whip for like a back end 4-5 starter is not completely terrible. 9.4% swinging, 25.7% CSW are both below average. Nothing special there. A little bit of premium contact. Manageable home run rate despite 90 miles an hour of exit velo, 40% hard hits, and an 8% barrel rate. This could have been easily in the 4s. Year before, better for managing contact. Limited strikeouts, a lot of walks, similar runs numbers. Better at inducing swinging strikes, but no real CSW to speak of. Just not that good. So I think we can fire away with some Royals bats. And then Brady Singer is just a weird pitcher. Succeeds. Stuff Plus doesn't like his arsenal at all. 15% or 15 points worse than average by Stuff Plus. But he has succeeded with it in different years over time. Last year wasn't that good for him. 5.52 ERA, but he was much better under the covers with a 4.28 xFIP. Struck out just 18.9% after being at 24.2% the year before. Had a 9.6% swinging strike rate in the bad year, 9.3% the year before. So it wasn't really swinging strikes that abandoned him. He just never really gets a ton of swinging strikes. He just lost 3 points of CSW. Stopped throwing, called strikes. Walked a few more hitters, got a few fewer called strikes, and it really, really hurt him. This year, the CSW is back up to this range. It's actually better at 31.2. 10.9% swinging strike is a little bit of a jump, despite still having, mediocre stuff overall. He didn't give up a ton of power this year. Didn't give up a ton of power that year, despite, some premium contact, but the launch angles are typically down. If you're sub 10%, you're fine, or 10 degrees, you're certainly fine. It's just, I don't think throwing him against the Rangers is really the right spot for it. They rate out pretty well. He can give up home runs. He's given up a home run, and he has the same thing as what we saw for Bybee, where it's 2 clean games for home runs on either side, and then 4 games in each of which he gave up a home run throughout the middle of it. He went 7 innings in his longest start in the first start of the season on the 31st against the Twins. He struck out 10. It was a terrific game. Walk 1, 3-hitter, no earned runs. Next start and the start after that, he struck out exactly 4 in both of those. Walk 1, walk 2. Gave up exactly 1 run on a homer, a couple of hits. 5 strikeouts in each of the next 2 starts. Gave up 2 earned against the White Sox. Gave up 5 earned against Toronto. 1 earned run in 5 innings against Detroit. Struck out 6, walked 3. He's walked 3 in each of his last 3 starts. He's such a mixed bag that I just don't think that grabbing him against the Rangers on a fairly deep slate at 9.2, 9.1, if he was in this kind of a range price-wise, I'd be more inclined to say at least roll the dice a few times, but I think he's entirely skippable here. It wouldn't completely knock me out of my chair if I tuned in late and he was at, a 50-point FanDuel start winning the slate. Like, it's within the realm of possibility, but the path to that is very, very thin, especially against a good Rangers team. Low strikeout Rangers team that draws a bunch of walks. And they're underperforming while reaching these numbers. Marcus Semien out of the top. He's a little bit cheap for a mediocre start. 256, 313, 436, a 112 WRC plus for him. He started out much better than Corey Seager has. Seager's priced all the way down to 3,400 on FanDuel. 5,700 is a discount, but 3,400 is a major, major discount on FanDuel. Combining that with Nathaniel Lowe being at 2,800 on FanDuel, 4,100 on DraftKings, I've been talking about it all week long. Nathaniel Lowe is a tremendous hitter. Over 45 plate appearances, we're at 316, 422, 447. That's right about where it should be. I mean, the on bases maybe a little high. There's no reason to think that he couldn't hit 316. 280 to 316 is perfectly within range. A little bit of power, some speed when he gets on base. Lowe is a really good bat. His price is going to go up at some point. Take advantage now. Adolis Garcia, 5,500, 4,000. Correctly priced on FanDuel, low priced on DraftKings. 15.7% barrels, 54.2% hard hits, 8 home runs, 4 stolen bases. Creating runs 56% better than average over 126 plate appearances. All of that is fully expected for Adolis Garcia. In fact, he's actually run a little bit more than I was thinking he might this year. Evan Carter, triple slash isn't where we want it at 222, 310, 444, but a 222 ISO, 5 home runs, 2 steals, 113 WRC plus over 113 plate appearances. I'll take it, and I think there's upside there for the money. 4,400 on DraftKings is pretty cheap. 33, probably about right now for FanDuel. Josh Smith, 37.28 across sites, multi-position eligible on FanDuel. Nice enough asset to have. He's playing really well so far this season. I don't think much of it is real at 318, 423, 500. 166 WRC plus to lead the team. I don't think he's that guy. He hasn't been in years past. But if you want to mix him in, if you're building a bunch of Ranger stacks, it's totally fine. Wyatt Langford, very intriguing rookie for just 3,800, 2,800. Hasn't been good, but it should be good. I almost said is good. Should be good. 4,100 for Jonah Heim is very cheap for his catcher power. He's got 3 home runs, 263, 291, 384 to start the season. Just a 91 WRC plus, but you're just home run hunting late in the lineup if you're rostering Jonah Heim. Leody Taveras hasn't been good. Hit 14 home runs, stole 14 bases last year. On the Royals side of things, Michael Garcia continues to be a weird fit. I'm going to keep on saying it until it stops being true at the top of the lineup. 226, 274 at the front end of the triple slash. Does not make a leadoff hitter. 4 home runs, 8 stolen bases. All right, that's nice. I do believe there's talent here. He hits the ball awfully hard. He just looks more like a 5 hitter than a leadoff man. It's just they have a bunch of that type down at the bottom of the lineups or in the back end of the lineup. So there's only so many spots that this guy can play. 4,600, 3,100. At least he's very cheap. He hits ahead of Bobby Witt, Vinny Pasquantino, Sal Perez. It's a pretty good spot in the lineup. Sal Perez has been great this season. He's defying injury. He keeps on getting banged up and keeps on missing. He might miss a day, but then he jumps back in the lineup. This is 2 weeks now where he got hurt on a Sunday. Didn't play on Monday, so I sat him, and then he came back and was good the rest of the week. For the season, over 122 plate appearances, 355, 418, 591, a 236 ISO, 7 home runs, 17.5% barrels, and 51.5% hard hits. He's looking like the Sal Perez from a couple years ago who hit 48 home runs. Vinny Pasquantino, the numbers are going to go up for Vinny if he just continues doing what he's doing. 47.9% hard hits. That's a nice jump from last year so far. Small sample. 9.8% strikeouts, 13.8% walks. He's just sitting at 221, 325 at the front end of the triple slash somehow. That's got to be luck. It's got to be. When you're hitting the ball that hard, that frequently, and drawing that many walks, he should just be hitting for a better average, better on base. So that's got to be luck. These numbers are going to go up. He's going to hit more home runs if he continues to elevate. 7.4% barrel rate needs to go up a little bit. A couple years ago, it was 8.8% in a small sample. But at worst, should be a good average, good on base, good doubles power, and excellent for putting the ball in play. Michael Massey, very low strikeout rate so far this season, 10.8% strikeouts, yet to walk in his 37 plate appearances. 216, 216, 405. That's why his on base is so low. 2 home runs. He did hit, 15 last year? 15 in 461 plate appearances last year. Cheap enough at second base if you're going to this team. 2,200 on FanDuel, 2,800, a little bit of lefty pop against a pretty weak right-handed pitcher. I don't mind the Michael Massey option. You get Freddie Furman as a second catcher in this lineup. Actually not positionally blocked because Sal has first base eligibility. Furman's got a little bit of underrated pop late in the lineup. He's got a 9.9% barrel rate last year, just 2.4% so far this year. 1 home run in 51 plate appearances, but able to put bat on ball for a little bit of power. Very, very cheap. I would still probably just go Sal at catcher because you want Vinny at first base. Probably doesn't land in that many lineups on DraftKings for me. MJ Melendez, definite believable power upside, 10.3% barrels, 4 home runs on the season, but everything else has been kind of lousy. I think he's a better hitter than this in the long term, but right now kind of scuffling along, but he is very, very cheap with a little bit of lefty power upside. Hunter Renfroe, Kyle Isbell have been pretty bad at the bottom of the lineup. Rangers bats, Royals bats, yes to both. Just on talent, I probably prefer the Rangers, but it's pretty close, and it's pretty close on the board in Vegas too. The Angels have Willie Calhoun. No shit. They're just stacking that team with like former high-end picks and high-end guys who never really worked out. Or young guys that they promoted too early. Like Neto and Shanuel were probably both promoted too early. Willie Calhoun was once upon a time a high-end prospect who never really worked out. Joe Adell's a high-end prospect who is yet to work out at, 25, I think we said the other day? Mickey Moniak is a former first overall pick who hasn't worked out. Logan O'Hoppe is a good prospect for them who's just kind of doing his thing. Weird. Is Willie Calhoun on a slate? Willie Calhoun is not uninteresting at the dead minimum on both sites. I gotta say, hitting fourth if you're going to that team. Again, it is in no way a reason to worry about Tanner Bybee, but it does make that lineup, if you're going there for weird reasons, a little bit more interesting. He hasn't done anything in the majors. 149 plate appearances last year, 5 home runs, mediocre triple slash. Year before, 62 plate appearances, 1 home run, mediocre triple slash. In years past, 284 plate appearances. I think this was his best year. Yeah, he had that was it. 21 home runs in 337 back in 2019. We're going way back in time at this point. It was supposed to be like that guy. It was going to be a guy for the Rangers, but just never really fully clicked. Got sent back down a few times. I think some injuries factored in. But for the dead men, if you're targeting Bybee is also probably on DraftKings, probably pretty popular. It does make the Angels a little bit more interesting. Rengifo hitting second is kind of interesting. That's probably where I would start a stack. I'd go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just straight line through there. I think Shanuel's skippable, especially at first base. But if you wanted to stack it up like that, you are occupying 3 outfield spots with Angels, but if you can find a good infield team on the other side. You put Rengifo at second base, and maybe you pair them with the Guardians in a weird stack. The Guardians are the other side of this game, though. I don't love the game stack idea here. No, I'm sure there are other infield teams you can pair them with. Anyway, we got to keep on moving. This is where we were, right? We did that game, yeah. All right, Mariners. Let's talk George Kirby. 28.4% strikeouts, 3% walks so far this season. As I said at the top of the show, for his major league career, he has made, 62 starts. He's walked 45 hitters in his entire career in 62 starts. That is absurd. As I said in the article, those two numbers do not typically go together that way. He's really, really good. He's been really good for strikeouts. 4.18 ERA. He's getting a little bit unlucky. It's a 3.01 xFIP under the covers. He's given up just a 30.8% hard hit rate, 88.2 miles an hour of exit velo. A few barrels in there, but only a 1.49% home run rate. Stuff Plus doesn't love the arsenal. It's right around league average according to that. But that doesn't necessarily, that's the shape and makeup of his pitches. It's spin. It's a lot of different factors about the actual makeup of the pitches. It doesn't necessarily factor in command, I don't think. And that's what's special about George Kirby. And that's also how he finds some strikeouts. He's got an 11.7% swinging strike rate, though, kind of defying the odds there in terms of Stuff Plus ratings. Last time out, he faced Arizona, a similarly low strikeout team. Struck out 12. Walked 1, gave up 2 hits, no earned runs over 7. He gave up no earned runs at Colorado. In Coors Field, 5-inning start. He struck out 7 in that one. It's against the Rockies, but it's impressive because it's Coors Field. No runs, 5 hits, walk 1. Struck out 6 against Cincinnati, walked 0, gave up a home run, 2 earned runs, 5 hits. 2 bad games. One against Cleveland. Got Clevelanded. Just 2 strikeouts, no walks. Gave up 8 earned runs on 10 hits. Lasted just 3 2/3. That's Cleveland for you. Over 4 innings in the start after that, he faced Toronto. He struck out just 3 walks, 0, gave up 5 earned on 8 hits. That's just a bad start. No bones about it. 6 2/3 in his first start of the season. He struck out 8 Red Sox. He was dynamite that start. More often than not, George Kirby's going to succeed in this spot. I like him at 96. I love him at 78. I think you just go there. I don't think you worry that much about the opponent. I think you can rely on the pitcher just being good for a few shares. It's not one to go crazy with. You saw him on the board. He ranks 3rd overall by projection. He's priced very, very effectively. He's just facing the best opponent out of the guys at the top of the board by a lot. Minnesota's been good for run scoring, but there's more strikeouts. These teams are much more gettable. So bear that in mind as you're making your decision. But Kirby, for his talent, is very, very cheap on DraftKings. Cheap enough on FanDuel that he's playable. Good shot at a quality start, if nothing else. Fair shot that the Mariners have a win here. I can see the Mariners winning this game. You can see some of the power marks that they're showing against Ronel Blanco on the other side. Blanco is a tale of 2 different prices. 8,200, totally playable against the ridiculously high strikeout Mariners on the other side here. At 10.8, it's a lot tougher to swallow. I do think that renders him kind of low owned probably on FanDuel, just given how high priced he is. I don't have a ton of faith that a lot of what we've seen so far this year is real. He did throw a no-hitter. He's got a 1.65 ERA, but a 4.21 xFIP. I think this is real. I don't think that's real. I think this is real. 94.42 stuff plus measurement. He's given up just a 1.56% home run rate on a fantastic ability so far to limit premium contact. 25.3% hard hits is nothing. That's great. 85.5 miles an hour of exit velo is excellent. Just a 2.4% barrel rate despite his 18.7 degree average launch angle. He's limited home runs very, very effectively. He's given up 2 on the season. They came in his 2 most recent starts, 1 to Washington, 1 to Colorado, but at Washington, at Colorado. Last year, this is why we're seeing some home run upside here. First of all, several of those guys are pretty good home run hitters, but last year in 52 innings, 7 starts, gave up a 5.31% home run rate on 11.8% barrels. It was similar in terms of the hard hits allowed. This is still pretty low. It's not 25.3, but I don't think this is necessarily real. So he gave up a lot of power. Again, home runs are very wonky. This could have easily probably been low 4s, high 3s without just a little bit of happenstance in a very, very small sample. I'm not saying he was bad. Year before, there's a little bit of a tiebreak over 6 1/3 innings. He also gave up some power, but that's an extremely small sample. That's unfair to do. I just think there's more power available than he's necessarily given up this year. The Mariners are showing it a little bit in the model. They could completely fail, though. They've been awful this season. Ronel Blanco could easily succeed. That's why I'm kind of interested at 82 on DraftKings. I just think it's a difficult pill at 10.8 on FanDuel. His 2nd most expensive FanDuel pitcher? Or no, that's right, the 4th most, because these guys are in the 11s. Just seems difficult. I would go to Mariners bats against him. I think they're interesting enough. This 28.5% strikeout rate, though, just to drive that point home one last time, that includes Josh Rojas at just 15.4%. If we exclude Rojas, that's a current year strikeout rate of 30.2% across the remaining 8 hitters. If I also take out Ty France at 22.2, the remaining 7 guys are at 31.3% so far this year. This entire stretch of hitters, from 2 through 6 in their lineup, is striking out at least at 31% so far this year. There are a lot of Ks in this lineup on the right day, and they've been really underperforming. Only Josh Rojas, over 78 plate appearances, and Cal Raleigh, over 105, have been above average for run creation. This has been a really, really targetable team for pitching this year. So again, 82 hundo, I think kind of works out for Ronel Blanco. It's just difficult over here. But going back to the point I was making, Julio Rodriguez, 5,100, 3,000 across sites. He's very cheap for his talent at this point. 1 home run, 7 stolen bases, just a .057 ISO, 10% worse than average creating runs. At some point last season, I think I started saying this about Julio and just saying, like, this is as bad as it's going to get. Right? We're somewhere near bottom. The triple slash has already started to normalize at 270, 310, 328. I think the power comes around. I think everything's going to click into place, kind of like we saw last year. 31% strikeouts is a lot. 46.3% hard hits is a dip from 52%. It's still a very good hard hit rate, though. He's got a very believable 12.75 in the home run model tonight. For 3,000, for 5,100, it's a really good player. Jorge Polanco, 3,800, 2,600. This might not be as bad as it gets for Jorge. I have no idea what that triple slash is going to look like at the end of the year. Right now, 181, 317, 295. 4 home runs is believable. He's always had power. Been in and out of lineups over the last couple of years with injuries and everything, but there's a good player in there somewhere. It's just, I don't know if he ever, we might be past that point. He might not actually be in there anymore. There is a little bit of lurking power, though, at 2,600, 3,800. Second base, that's easy enough to fit with an 8.85 in the home run model. I don't dislike Jorge Polanco, and if you're playing stacks of Mariners, it's one of the easier spots to get to positionally. It's just if you do that and you're playing Rojas, then you're putting Rojas at third base. I don't love that combo. So maybe it's a one or the other situation. Mitch Garver, Cal Raleigh, both have tremendous power for the position. A lot of catcher home runs there. 3 home runs on the board for Garver. 6 home runs on the board for Cal Raleigh. But Garver's at 143, 255, 298. Raleigh's at 217, 305, 413. Again, over 105 plate appearances. He's been their best player at 111 WRC plus when you're not talking about Josh Rojas. 16.1% barrels, 55.4% hard hits for Cal Raleigh so far this season. If I'm just buying the power upside for 28 on FanDuel, for 39 on DraftKings, I'm perfectly fine with that, especially on a team that really lacks a high-end DFS first baseman. I don't really mind going like, first base catcher and then util with both of those hitters if they're both in the lineup. Obviously positionally blocked on DraftKings, but they're both cheap. I think they're at worst a decent catcher tandem where you can just rotate between stacks, go back and forth, look for the home run. Raleigh a little bit ahead at 11.13, but Garver right there at 10.57. Mitch Haniger's 3,700, 2,900. He's got 4 home runs this season, a 151 ISO and 90 WRC plus. Triple slash has come way down. Was a very good power hitter once upon a time. Still makes pretty good contact. Strikes out a ton. Doesn't hit for average. Doesn't really get on base right now. But a playable part, 8.62 in the home run model. Definitely a little bit of upside for 29.37. Ty France at 35.26, more of a contact-based hitter. Does have 2 home runs this year, but 95 WRC plus. Pretty lousy triple slash. Luke Raley at a 7.64, maybe some sneaky pop from the left side. You're getting really desperate at that point at 3,000, 2,300. He is very cheap, though. Quad position eligible Dylan Moore for 26. Dual position on DraftKings for 31. Not really that playable. 5 stolen bases, 197, 306, 328. Again, if you're getting really, really desperate as a wraparound play to reduce price for some reason when you've got all these cheap guys up at the top, maybe it's just a positional thing. There's not really a lot of good reasons to play Dylan Moore right now. I'd just rather have Josh Rojas off the top for 27 than wrap him around for 26. On the Astros side, if anybody's going to spoil George Kirby's day, Jose Altuve, Jordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, even Jeremy Pena and Jainer Diaz, the way they're playing, it's a good lineup to ruin Kirby's day. I'm not saying he's not under threat here. So if you're scratching somebody off the top end of the pitcher board, again, just based on the opponents, out of these guys, it would be Kirby. So there's that. And with everything I said about Ronald Blanco and the power that the Mariners are showing, just one more time, they're terrible, or they've been terrible. They strike out way too much, and he projects out well, especially for the money on DraftKings. So Altuve at 57, 4,000. He's correctly priced on FanDuel, arguably a couple $100 cheap, definitely cheap on DraftKings. Off to a tremendous start. I'm not really sure why he's under 6,000 on DraftKings right now. 352, 415, 586, a 234 ISO, creating runs 88% better than average. 7 home runs, 6 stolen bases at one of the weakest positions in the game. Seems like he should be more expensive. Alex Bregman's been bad. It makes sense that he's cheap. At the Mendoza line with a 270 on base, 273 slug, a .073 ISO, 60 WRC plus, 1 home run. Like I said in the article, he might have taken a swig of Jose Abreu's water bottle and caught whatever Abreu's got because he's been but he's very, very cheap. Jordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, two of the best left-handed hitters in the sport. 7 home runs for Alvarez, 8 for Tucker with 5 stolen bases. 195 ISO. Alvarez has been a little bit down, but he's below 4,000 on FanDuel, which is a discount. 5,700 is a discount on DraftKings. Tucker at 59.42 across sites could easily be 6,000 and 44, 45. He's been tremendous this year. Pena's at a discount, 4,600, 3,000 at shortstop for a guy hitting 333, 375, 467 over 128 plate appearances. A guy who was good 2 years ago, a guy who's providing some counting stats with 3 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 145 WRC plus. You're stacking Astros. Pena's definitely on the list. Jainer Diaz at 4,300, especially where you need catchers. Buy into the contact. I mean, 12.2% barrels, 43.9% hard hits in 377 plate appearances last year, resulted in 23 home runs. This year, 3 home runs in 121 plate appearances with a 48.5% hard hit rate. The barrel rate's reduced, but the hard hits are still there. He's been excellent. 283, 322, 425. Creating runs 14% better than average. He's cheap. Loperfido hasn't done much in his 9 plate appearances, but I think we can forgive that for a guy who had 13 home runs in AAA before they called him up. So just look for some cheap power from the left side there. John Singleton, even cheaper power, but hasn't really delivered much of it. 2 home runs, slashing 275, 356, 431. Not completely lost at the plate over 59 plate appearances. So a little bit of lefty pop. And then Mauricio Dubon fits into 4 positions on FanDuel, 2 positions on DraftKings. He's very cheap. He's been productive enough. If you want to wrap him around to the top of the lineup, no real objections. It's just, kind of a low-end player to do that with. But Astros play 1 through 9 most days. So it's a bit of a 4-corner spot. I want to buy into some of the Mariners' power, especially if they happen to end up low-owned against Ronel Blanco, especially if he happens to be high-owned on DraftKings at 8,200. I can certainly see buying into some low-owned Astros by the same token against Kirby. I think more of Kirby in the head-to-head matchup there. I'm taking Kirby over the Astros. So I definitely think he's in play, and that 7,800 is super, super appealing on DraftKings. I think you just go to that, and whether it works out or not, it was the right thing to do. So, Kirby, yes, especially on DraftKings. Blanco, yes on DraftKings. That's what I wanted to hit. Blanco on FanDuel at 10.8 again. I'm sure he's going to be low owned, so you can throw some darts at all those strikeouts on that slate at worst. So he's in play. It's just a weird fit at 10.8. And then bats on both sides. The Mariners are definitely the worst team. They're probably the more interesting of the 2 teams, though, given the low pricing, given the upside for some of the players that we know are better than they've been, and what the home runs potentially look like against Ronel Blanco. Bo Sox and the Twins. Like I said at the top of the show, I think the Red Sox are maybe underappreciated in this spot against Chris Paddock. It's a low total in this game. They were the line swung against them. Minnesota's been really productive, but Tanner Houck's been really good. When I say really productive, I mean in terms of run scoring over the last 15, 16 days. Again, since April 15th, they lead baseball with 94 runs scored. So maybe they're not a bad baseball team, but Tanner Houck, you can see it right there. 1.60 ERA, a 2.58 xFIP is fantastic. Over 39 and a third, 6 starts, giving you a lot of depth, allowing just a 5.6 degree average launch and a 4.7% barrel rate. So he's keeping the ball down, keeping the ball in the park. I think it's 1 home run on the season, 0.65% home run rate. It's almost certainly 1 home run. Yep, 1 home run in his 6 starts and pitching a lot of innings in those starts. He's walked a Kirby-esque 3.2% so far, 26.5% strikeouts, a .92 whip, a 12.9% swinging strike rate, 32.1% CSW is spectacular. Not far off the swinging strike rate from last year in 106 innings. Strikeouts are definitely up, walks are definitely down. But he made some notable strides this year with the Arsenal, and he looks really good. Stuff Plus likes him, 7% better than average, pushing 8%, or 8 points, however the hell that works. Still never sure how to express Stuff Plus properly. I know it's measured. I know 100 is league average, but I don't know if I'm supposed to say like points or percent or what. So I'm a little bit baffled by where that Vegas line is at. I think Houck looks terrific at 8,100. He's just another one of those guys on this slate that they've just got really, really fairly priced on DraftKings, or cheap, whatever you want to call it. Very broad mid-range there on DraftKings, and then that group of 4 super discounted pitchers. I think you can get really cheap while maintaining quality on DraftKings on the mound tonight. He's going up against a Twins confirmed lineup that has a 21.7% strikeout rate so far this year, but the same group of hitters had a 24.4% over the full season last year, which I think is the much more honest number. So I like the strikeout potential. I think he's been pitching great for a reason. Last time out, Houck went 6 2/3, struck out 9. That was against the Cubbies, gave up 1 earned run. Struck out 4, gave up 2 earned runs over 6 to Cleveland at Cleveland. And then the game before that at Fenway, he faced that same Cleveland team. And this is against Cleveland. Complete game shutout, 9 innings, allowed just 3 hits, struck out 9 against that low strikeout, high hit totals Guardians team. He's been really, really good. So this is just a dramatically low price. And I think this is a really gettable team that maybe is hiding some additional strikeouts in here. On the other side, Paddock, over 26 innings in 5 starts, he has a 5.88 ERA, a 4.20 xFIP, a 17.4% strikeout rate. I don't really see why the Red Sox are, again, at, what was it, a 3-point-something implied total? A 3.88 implied total against this pitcher? It might be something to do with the Garrett Cooper, Dom Smith, Reese McGuire configuration. They're definitely, again, suffering from Tristan Casas being out. Masataka Yoshida's out now. They brought up Vaughn Grissom, the prize prospect who came in the Chris Sale deal? I think he's been injured. Making his season debut. That's a little bit interesting. Shortstop at 3,200 on DraftKings, 2,200 shortstop and second base on FanDuel. But I really feel like this Red Sox team should be a little bit more highly regarded on the board against this pitcher. Paddock had 1 good start. It came against the White Sox. He struck out 10. That was a great outing, but it was those White Sox. There's nothing special about that. 7 innings, faced 27 hitters, also gave up 6 hits in that team. Probably got a little lucky not to give up any runs. In the most recent start, he faced the Angels, who are an equally bad team. He lasted 5 innings. He gave up 4 earned. He gave up a home run. He struck out 2 and walked 1. He struck out 2 in the start before that 10 strikeout game, over 5 1/3 at Baltimore. So a good team. Struck out 2, walked 1, gave up 2 home runs, 9 earned runs on 12 hits. 4 innings and 4 2/3 innings against the Brewers and the Dodgers in his first 2 starts. Nothing special. Just a couple earned runs in each of them, but nothing impressive either. So I really don't think we're going to Paddock, even at cheap pricing. At 63, again, he is in that group of pitchers. But out of these guys, I certainly prefer Sears. I probably prefer Ciccone even for a little bit more money just on talent. Weathers on matchup, if nothing else, at 6,000. I think you probably roll those dice even before targeting the Red Sox here. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he finds a few strikeouts. They're at what is this lineup at? Leaving out the NA and the 0, they're at a 25.4% strikeout rate. But again, outside of the outlier against the White Sox, he's got 3 games in which he struck out just 2 hitters this season. The other game he had 5 against the Dodgers. Doesn't look like a Chris Paddock spot of much appeal to me. I think I'd rather take some Red Sox and target him. We're seeing some home run upside here for the Red Sox in the model. 12.06 for Devers, 8.68 for O'Neill, which is not fully caught up with what he's done so far this year, but knows who he is from a few years ago, which is a tremendous hitter when he's healthy. 309, 429, 667. The triple slash is probably a little high, a little bit surprising, but nothing about the 9 home runs is surprising. 358 ISO is certainly high. Creating runs exactly 100% better than average is high. But when you're with a full other player in the lineup, that's certainly valuable for 56.35. Rafi Devers is shockingly low priced on both sides. Against Chris Paddock, hitting second, Rafi Devers, I know he's got a hurt shoulder or whatever the hell, but it hampered him a little bit early in the season, but he's at 5,100, 3,200. He's got an 11.9% barrel rate, a 45.8% hard hit rate. Yeah, those are down a little from last year, but they're still very, very good. He's striking out just 19% of the time. He's walking 16% of the time. The strikeouts are right where they should be. The walks are well up. He's got a 286, 415, 468 triple slash. He's created runs 51% better than average. Yeah, he's got 3 home runs in 94 plate appearances, just a 182 ISO. I get it, but we are not far off at all with Rafi Devers. Not for him being this low priced. So, excellent option. I think he's a very good one-off. If you don't want to stack Red Sox, grab Rafi Devers as a one-off at third base. I think that's a tremendous, tremendous option. Home run model loves the spot for him. I'm a big fan of like the spot. I can't be a big fan of Rafi Devers on the Red Sox. Sorry. I think he's a tremendous hitter. I do. I am a fan, despite him being a Red Sox. Jarren Duran at the top of the lineup has been really good. 9 stolen bases, a 104 WRC plus. He's cooled a little bit, actually. Over 151 plate appearances. We're 261, 338, 388. The on base is still where you want it. The running is good. The triple slash has cooled off a little bit. 45.7% hard hits in a good season over 362 plate appearances last year. I think this is about what we can expect. This level of production, 295, 346 at the front end of the triple slash over the long term from Jarren Duran. Maybe a little bit lower of an average, mid-high 280s somewhere. But a good player for 4,831 for correlated scoring with these two. Willie Abreu has been really good. Over 92 plate appearances, 313, 391, 513 with a 200 ISO, 152 WRC plus. Some pretty good premium contact. Was good in a small sample last year. Over 85 plate appearances, did basically the same thing. So some believable ability out of Abreu for just 3,800, 3,200 across sites. Looks like a very good option from the left side. Then we get a little bit thinner. Garrett Cooper and Dom Smith both in the lineup. I guess Bobby Dahlbeck not being pushed by fate to be in this lineup because Cooper ended up being fine after getting hit on the wrist the other night, and now they also have Dom Smith for 2,800, 2,100. Poor Bobby Dahlbeck never gets a shot. Cooper at 36-23, right-handed hitter with a little bit of pop, 6.24 in the home run model. He's got 1 on the season. Typically, we're looking for Cooper a little bit more against lefties, but he does have a good overall barrel rate, good hard hit over the last few seasons. Fairly high strikeout as well. Kind of a mix and match option at best, but very low priced. Dom Smith at 28-21. Went 1 for 4 yesterday, it looks like, in his debut for the season. He's very cheap. We've seen him hit for a little minor bit of power, but he's another player, never really became who he was supposed to be. Very, very cheap at 21 on FanDuel, though. Grissom is interesting. Came from the Braves last year in 80 plate appearances, 280, 313, 347. Year before that, he hit 5 home runs, stole 5 bases in 156 plate appearances with the Braves. 291, 353, 440, created runs 21% better than average. Fairly highly regarded prospect. So that's an interesting bat to drop into this lineup for them. I kind of like that. I actually kind of wish they had him hitting 5th today. Reese McGuire greatly prefer Connor Wong, but McGuire's got 2 sneaky home runs on the season. I think they both came in the same game. 2 stolen bases, 113 WRC plus. And then Ceddanne Rafaela has really struggled, but there is talent here in the 9 spot. 3,000, 2,700, triple position eligible on FanDuel, dual on DraftKings. I do think Ceddanne Rafaela is an interesting enough player to wrap around back to the top of the lineup on either site for a cheap price. So I like this Red Sox lineup a little bit more than Vegas. That never makes me happy. I really, as my father has said over the years, they didn't build all those casinos for nothing or by losing. So, they're typically correct. It just seems like a spot where, especially for price, could be some upside here. Twin side of things, we get a cheapo Willie Castro down toward the bottom of the lineup. That's always fun. 270, 339, 450, 127 WRC plus for him. He's been part of the run creation machine for this team. He's got 2 home runs, 3 steals. A lot of guys above him playing a little bit better. Carlos Correa, over 58 plate appearances. He's continued to hit the ball fairly hard. No real barrels to speak of, but 44.4% hard hits in a small sample. Very good for premium contact over the last few years. 271, 397, 375, creating runs 33% better than average in a tiny sample. Back in the lineup, fully healthy. Everybody's cheap. 4,100, 2,800 for Max Kepler. He's got a home run, a stolen base on the season, a 95 WRC plus, but we know there's lefty power there. Only striking out at a 16.7% rate, one of the better strikeout numbers on the team. Last year was 21.6, still one of the better strikeout numbers on the team. Ryan Jeffers either has made some massive, massive improvements, or this is a little bit of an outlier in terms of his strikeout numbers, 16.8% this year. Last year, 27.8%. He's slashing 300, 393, 556 in a really hot start. 5 home runs, 256 ISO, 171 WRC plus. Don't love the pitching matchup, but is on the board for some cheap catcher one-offs at 4,500. Definitely a part of twin stacks if you're building twin stacks. Alex Kirilloff in the leadoff spot has been pretty good. Creating runs 24% better than average at 212 ISO, 2 home runs in 96 plate appearances, hitting the ball very hard. Edward Julian hitting the ball extremely hard, 16.7% barrel rate, 41.7% hard hits, 7 home runs, limited triple slash so far, but a 268 ISO, creating runs 34% better than average. Tremendous option at second base. Again, just a bad matchup. Trevor Larnach, also hitting for a lot of power. 11.1% barrels, 51.9% hard hits. It's resulted in 2 home runs at 229 ISO, 95% better than average creating runs so far over 41 plate appearances. But there's clearly some talent here. I think Larnach, for cheap pricing from the left side in other matchups, definitely somebody to keep in mind. He's been part of their run scoring so far this year as well. Carlos Santana coming around a little bit for power, 4 home runs. Everything else has kind of sucked. Jose Miranda at the bottom of the lineup, 315, 339, 519, 2 homers, a steal, and 56 plate appearances. He's also been kind of frisky. 3,200 at third base, not great. 2,600 first and third base. He's playable. I just wish he was at different positions or in a different spot in the lineup. I don't love first base, third base being occupied by a 9-hitter. So Tanner Houck is a big yes, definitely on DraftKings at 81. That's a killer spot. 11-3 on FanDuel. Take him or leave him. I think that'll render him a little bit lower owned than he should be in this matchup. And again, I do think there are strikeouts based on this number hiding in this lineup. They're not quite as bad for strikeouts as I think they are in the long term. You can roster some twins. They've been very, very good over the last couple of weeks for DFS. So I think you can take some twins against Houck, but I prefer the Houck side. I wouldn't play Paddock, and I think you can definitely grab some Red Sox bats. And I really, really think a lot of the price on Rafi Devers, even if it's just as a one-off at 3,200, 5,100 at third base. Just 5 o'clock, handful of games to go. Got the White Sox and the Cards. We got both these lineups in. Starting with the lineup for the league worst White Sox. Nicky Lopez continues to be miscast as a leadoff hitter. Most of this lineup continues to be miscast as major leaguers. The Cards haven't been much better, but there's a lot more believable talent in the Cardinals lineup. So it's in the article up on Rotoscouts, by the way. If you haven't checked out rotoscouts.com, all the projections are free right now. The article is free. Home run picks are up there. Top stacked rankings. Top power indexes up there. A lot of good stuff going on. We've got a free Discord for you to jump into. Follow the @Rotoscouts Twitter handle. And check out our guys over at acemind.io. Promo code Rotoscouts, all in caps, gets you 20% off your first month for Optimizer and Sims. And hit that like button. How's that for plugging stuff? So the White Sox, where's this info? I don't want to go digging around for it. There it is. Dead last in baseball with 89 runs scored so far this season in 31 games. Next to last, ahead of only the opposing Cardinals with 22 home runs. Cardinals have, I think, 21. It's been a couple of bad baseball teams. Cards are just 28th out of 30. They've only scored 109 runs this season, so they're in third to last. They're dead last for home runs with 21. That's over. They have 109 runs and 21 home runs in 31 games over 1,159 collective plate appearances. For comparison, as I say in the article, the Orioles are second in baseball with 164 runs and first with 48 home runs in 31 games and 1,175 collective plate appearances. It's a great upside matchup for the Cards going up against Brad Keller. Keller went an inning in 2/3, and that was only like 3 days ago. I don't think we're going to see him for more than, let's call it, 3 innings. And he's not good anyway. Last year in 45 1/3, he had a hilariously upside down 14.7% strikeout rate with a 21.3% walk rate over 9 starts. I didn't exactly remember that. That's shockingly bad. 4.57 ERA with a 6.41 xFIP, a 1.92 WHIP in that sample. He's been better than that over time, but we're talking about 2 years ago, 139 and 2/3 and 22 starts, a 5.09 ERA with a 4.35 xFIP, just a 16.5% strikeout rate, a more realistic 9.2% walk rate, but still a terrible walk rate. He doesn't give up a ton of power. He typically does keep the ball down. 6.7 degree average launch in the bad year 2 years ago, 5 degree average launch last year in that abomination of a season, just a 1.42% home run rate. So maybe a little difficult to homer against, which doesn't really work for the Cards and all their lack of power. Maybe that hampers the stack upside a little. But I think any of these players is certainly capable of hitting a home run against this pitcher. So I don't know. It's certainly not a spot where I'm taking Brad Keller. I'll tell you that. 7,100, 6,000. I think I'm just at the point where I've been let down by this Cardinals team so many times that even in a great spot, I'm starting to hesitate a little bit with them. But they look the opportunity looks pretty killer. I just think they're probably going to be a little bit highly owned, but everybody's cheap. The pitching is terrible. The White Sox have a bad bullpen. There's every reason in the world to believe that the Cardinals should succeed in this spot, except for the fact that it's the goddamn Cardinals. Any other team in this league, I think I'd be more excited about right now. And this is a team that I like. This is a team I've gone to a bunch of times over the years. Brendan Donovan in the top spot has 4-position eligibility for only 2,900 on FanDuel. He's 4,300 second base and outfield on the DraftKings slate. 3 home runs, but a disappointing 222, 309, 368 to start the season, 97 WRC plus. In 371 last year, it was a lot better. 284, 365, 422. Year before that, 281, 394, 379. That's who Brendan Donovan actually is. So he's actually a really good leadoff hitter, and he's discounted at 4 positions on FanDuel. He's cheap enough at 2 positions on DraftKings. It's an interesting enough bat going up against Brad Keller. Even if we're just looking for like put the ball in play kind of opportunity. Brendan Donovan, one of the top options in this lineup. Wilson Contreras has been like their best hitter, 5 home runs, 247 ISO, creating runs 51% better than average with a 373 on base. Leads the team with 5 home runs in kind of unexpected output. Or not necessarily unexpected, but unexpected that the other guys would be so far behind. Contreras is a really good hitter for a catcher. 5,300, 3,300. I think he's playable. Not quite cheap enough as a one-off on DraftKings, but playable in that role. Anytime we get a catcher hitting, first, second, third, I'm always intrigued as a catcher one-off, and he's a tremendous hitter. Paul Goldschmidt back in the third spot, kind of interesting there. 4,800, 2,900. He is super, super cheap for who he's been over time. It's just, we're not playing with that guy. We've got to use this version of him. 2 home runs this season, 230, 320, 310, a .08 ISO, and 87 WRC plus. I think most concerningly, small sample of batted ball events, just 5.2% barrels, 39% hard hits. It's not very Goldschmidtian kind of numbers. The strikeouts are up. The walks are down slightly. I still like the bounce back, but, I don't know how high we're going to bounce. As the years go on, that bounce becomes smaller and smaller. Nolan Arenado is still doing a lot of Nolan Arenado things, just not hitting for a lot of power so far this year. .076 ISO, just exactly at league average for run creation. Only 1 home run in 132 plate appearances. Slashing 271, 333, 347. Still just striking out at a 15.2% clip, but his power, his contact has been lost also. Just 1% barrels and 28% hard hits. That's way off the mark. So a little bit of concern for both of these guys, but they're both priced down. 2,900 for Arenado on the other side of the infield at third, 5,000 on the DraftKings slate. Very affordable options against this pitcher. Alec Burleson for 26-25. He's off to an okay start. 271, 320, 386, a 105 WRC plus. He's got 2 homers. He hits left-handed. First base and outfield eligible at a fair price. Mason Wynn out to a good start. Kind of an interesting shortstop, especially if you're going to Cards. I think maybe you keep Mason Wynn in mind as like a spot that probably won't be the most popular option in this lineup as people stack this team up against a bad pitcher with the highest run total on the board. For 3,200, 2,800, he's got a 298, 368, 390 triple slash so far. It's just 97 plate appearances. He's stolen 4 bases, hasn't hit for any power whatsoever. 118 WRC plus. Last year, just 2 homers, 2 steals, a really bad triple slash and 137 chances. Not that much track record with him, but he's a decently well-regarded young player, so I do think there's realistic upside here. So if he's unpopular compared to some of the other teammates, it's at least maybe a way to differentiate some card stacks, if they are popular. Lars Nootbaar's a pretty good hitter. 51% hard hits in a small sample of 76 plate appearances, but just sitting at 185, 293, 308. Home run, 2 stolen bases. Last year in 503, he slashed 261, 367, 418. That's much more Lars Nootbaar, 14 homers, 11 steals, 118 WRC plus. Very playable. And again, if you're differentiating by playing a good player who, when I thought he was going to hit up here, I was going to build into some stacks, still totally happy to get him down here for those prices, and if he offsets some ownership. Nolan Gorman, 39-28, and the same thing. If he's less popular for the down lineup spot, I'll take a little bit of home run upside. He's got 4 on the season, just a 162 ISO. He's been bad overall, but the power is very, very real. He led this team with 27 homers and 464 plate appearances last year. Michael Ciani, kind of skippable in the last spot, but if you build 150 cards lineups, you should probably be in 5 to 10 of them. The White Sox, I just don't want to play. I started talking about Nicky Lopez being miscast at the top of the lineup before. 205, 298, not even providing any counting stats or anything over 98 plate appearances. It's way, way worse than Michael Franco, who I mentioned was miscast in the top of the Royals lineup all season so far. At least he hits some home runs. He steals some bases. He's on base, at a similar clip, but doing more with it. Nicky Lopez is just not good, especially not for DFS. Even at 22, 3 positions, 21 at second base. Just totally, totally skippable in a totally skippable lineup that is going up against the top pitcher on the slate, Mr. Sonny Gray. 10-1 on DraftKings, 11-5 on FanDuel. Totally justifiable against an easily gettable White Sox lineup. 21% strikeout rate for the confirmed version of the lineup. That includes Braden Shoemake's 13% over 46 plate appearances. It also includes some high strikeout rate, small sample guys. But overall, there are some very gettable hitters here. And then it's Nicky Lopez at 10.2%. Tommy Pham in just 24 plate appearances, sure, that's low, but 22% last year is the real number. Very gettable team for Sonny Gray. So far this year, Gray in 4 starts, 23 and a third, has a monumental 36% strikeout rate with a 13.7% swinging, 32.7% CSW. That's way, way up, obviously, in a small sample. It's a little bit of happenstance so far, but he's pitching really well. Last year, 24.3%, year before 24%. That's the realistic expectation for Sonny Gray, but he's always been good at finding swinging strikes. Pretty good CSW. Well, actually, that's moderately bad. This is a pretty good CSW. I was bouncing back and forth with my eyes because this swinging is only okay. This CSW is only okay, but that swinging is good. That CSW is all right. And he put it all together this year. Maybe that's the best way to say that. We've seen Sonny Gray succeed over a number of years. We've also seen him go pop, most notably with the Yankees. But he's been terrific in his starts this year. The last 3 starts, he's pitched at least 6 innings. 6 innings in the most recent one, struck out 9 of 25 Mets. Start before that was dominant in 6 1/3 against the Brewers. He struck out 12, gave up 2 earned runs over 6 1/3. 6 strikeouts in 6 innings, gave up no runs on 4 hits to the Athletics. And then 5 strikeouts, no runs, no walks, 5 hits against the Phillies to start the year. That's how he gets to a 1.16 ERA with a 2.10 xFIP. Been limiting power, limiting premium contact. Non-threatening lineup on the other side. I think even if he's the most popular pitcher by far on both sides, I think you just fire away with Sonny Gray shares. He looks really, really good. White Sox, again, the worst team in baseball. By the numbers, by the hitters, by name recognition, whatever you want to go by, they're the worst team in baseball. We will talk about them every single day that they're on a slate. We will be targeting them every day. So every now and then, they're definitely going to get us. They got us twice, in the last 10 days, where they scored like 8 runs and 10 runs, oddly. Those are by far outlier performances for a team that scored 80-something runs all season. Tommy Pham's a good player in the second spot in their lineup, 3,100, 2,900. Over 24 plate appearances, he's already been productive. I expect nothing less from Tommy Pham, but they don't have much support. Eloy Jimenez has 3 home runs. Gavin Sheets has 3 home runs. They're the 2 best players on this team. If I'm stacking anybody from this team in a contrarian sense, it's those 3 guys. Andrew Vaughn, Andrew Benintendi have both been bad. Vaughn at 193, 258, 239, no home runs. Benintendi 200, 228, 300 with 3 home runs and a stolen base, 46 and a 49 WRC plus respectively. Paul DeJong, I know it's a revenge game. That doesn't exist in baseball. He's got 3 home runs, a 216, 266, 405 triple slash, a 90 WRC plus. No, thank you. Martin Maldonado for the dead min. Very skippable on DraftKings. 2,200 on FanDuel. Every now and again, Martin Maldonado, it's a very cheap, very low-owned home run, but it is incredibly infrequent, so much so that you shouldn't invest in it. Braden Shoemake, big no thank you at the bottom of the lineup. So Sonny Gray's a big yes. The Cardinals are definitely a yes as a stack. It's just a little low faith based on, one, Keller's weird ability to keep the ball down, at least for the 3 innings that he'll be in the game. They'll spike upside for a little bit more power later in the game. And then 2, just because they've been so bad this year. Again, 3rd worst in the league for run scoring, worst in the league for home runs so far. For a lineup that I do think has a bunch of good hitters in it. It's just weird. Padres, D-backs. A couple of good pitchers, a couple of confirmed lineups. Fantastic. So again, Slate Ciccone. Oh, we have this one already. Let me just paste it in there. Slate Ciccone, 25.6% strikeouts this year, 2.3% walks, a 2.25 ERA with a 3.42 xFIP over his 2 starts. Last year in 27 innings, 4 starts, he had an 18% strikeout rate with a 3.6% walk rate, a 4.33 ERA, and a 4.59 xFIP. But it's been 2 successful 6-inning quality starts for him to start his season. 1 against San Francisco, 1 against Seattle. We know Seattle is incredibly gettable. San Francisco also has a fair amount of strikeouts in their lineup. He struck out just 3 against the Giants, struck out 8 against the Mariners. Allowed 2 runs to the Giants, 1 run to the Mariners. He's given up 5 total hits in the 12 innings. For 6,600 against a middle-of-the-road Padres lineup with some of their better players kind of struggling, I think he's playable on DraftKings. He's right in line with those bargain bin guys. Probably one of the better options for the bargain bin. At 10,100 on FanDuel, I think someone over there in the pricing department is smoking crack. I do not understand how they arrived at that on a day where Tanner Bybee against the Angels is at 94. It just doesn't make sense. I don't think he's playable at that price on FanDuel. Like, even if he gets to the median projection, even if you put some bonuses on top, you're still dealing with low 30s. I think there's just so many better ceilings for the money. It's just off. Padres are good enough, too. I mean, I would probably rather have Padres stacks in a vacuum. Jurickson Profar at the top of the lineup has been inarguably very good so far this year. 342, 431, 523. I don't think the talent is there, but the production has been there. He's been really good. Tizzlemane's happy that Vaughn Grissom's finally ready to go. Power's asking, hey Tara, this question won't make sense, but Devers Witt or Jeremy Pena Ohtani? Probably Devers Witt. More high-end. Like, just being able to get star there. You're talking about one of the best third basemen in baseball and one of the best shortstops in baseball, where Jeremy Pena is playing well this year but had a shaky year last year, and is certainly no Bobby Witt at shortstop. Devers is not Shohei Ohtani, but if you're like drawing comparisons to a lot of other hitters in the league and you mentioned Rafael Devers, you wouldn't get left out of the room. He's a very, very good hitter. So I think I would lean that way. Ohtani, obviously the best player in the mix. Mendick out. Shoemake batting ninth. We got that. That was in the lineup we had. Thank you, though, Lair. Always important. Point out those changes to me, especially because if I don't know about it and I don't go back and update it, the teams go into the uploads for the website like one by one. So if I don't know about it, I won't necessarily catch it. I don't think we've missed any this year, but always good to point it out. So both lineups confirmed. We were talking about the Padres at the top. So Profar, 3,700, 3,100 continues to produce for the cheap salaries. I continue to not really believe, but it's right there in front of you. He's had maybe not this productive, but he's had productive stretches and then completely gone into a tailspin before. So I'm not a believer yet, but I think he's playable at the top of the lineup. It's a great spot in this batting order against a possibly gettable pitcher. Fernando Tatis underperforming for the season, but the price is way, way down at $5,300 on DraftKings. He does still have a 12.9% barrel rate and 53.5% hard hits. So there's probably some luck, some happenstance involved here. 233, 324, 426 is a weak triple slash for him. 6 home runs, 4 steals, a 194 ISO, a 120 WRC plus, 19.6% strikeouts, 10.8% walks, especially factoring in the contact. I can't imagine we're that far off. So I think we're just getting a cheap shot at Tatis. Cronenworth's been terrific. 4,300, 3,100, 5 home runs, 205 ISO, creating runs 36% better than average. Manny Machado just at league average for run creation, 250, 302, 383, 4 home runs. Not a Manny kind of start to a season, but now he costs just 4,800, 3,200. I promise Manny Machado is not nearly done at the plate, so I expect all of this to turn around. I think it's just Manny Machado at a good price here. Xander Bogaerts is very similar in my mind. I really don't think Xander Bogaerts is done being a very good player. 4,400 at second base, 2,800 shortstop at second base on FanDuel. He's been really bad this year. 72 WRC plus, 217, 284, 287. It's terrible, but I like the upside. Jackson Merrill for 36-26, a playable part. He's got a home run, 4 stolen bases. Campusano, definitely a playable catcher at 36-27. If he was higher up in the lineup at that price, he'd be an interesting one-off. In the 7 spot, not as much, more of a mix and match part in some deep Padres stacks. Ha-Seong Kim, justifiably down the batting order right now. 4 home runs, 7 steals is decent production. He's still got a 107 WRC+. He's a functional wraparound play for how good he is. Just struggling with a 218, 329 on the front end of his triple slash right now. Tyler Wade, 2,500, 2,400 on FanDuel with quadruple position eligibility over there. A flexible enough, utility type guy. Not a lot of production out of Wade, but if you get him on base, he might swipe you a base, score you a few points in correlation with the top of the lineup as a wraparound play. That's the best you're going to get out of Tyler Wade. There's not a lot of upside there. Dylan Cease at 9,300 is very interesting on DraftKings. 11,000 is not an incorrect price for Dylan Cease on the FanDuel slate. It just makes him a challenge for this slate because of where he projects. Like I said at the top of the show, his median projection is below a number of these guys and well below Sonny Gray for a comparable price. But I think the ceiling probably exceeds Sonny Gray on a lot of slates. Or maybe at worst is equivalent to. Because Sonny Gray is not the strikeout pitcher, regardless of what he's done so far this year. Sonny Gray is not the strikeout pitcher that Dylan Cease is over time. The Diamondbacks are not nearly as bad as the White Sox are. The Diamondbacks are really good, and they're very good at limiting strikeouts, so it does put an artificial cap on Cease's ceiling. But if you're just talking in terms of raw pitcher ceiling, Cease is right there with the best of the slate. So I'm willing to go to the FanDuel price despite the projection. It's just a much better buy at 9,300 on DraftKings. Very, very playable on DraftKings, despite a very good opponent. 17.1% strikeout rate for this confirmed Diamondbacks lineup is terrific. They're difficult to strike out. They've been a really productive team. If you take out the 5.9% for Pavin Smith, that's still 18.5%. Very, very good lineup. Been thirsty today. Feel like I'm getting more like in the front of my mouth as I'm talking through this today. Hopefully that's not coming through too badly on the microphone. If we're looking at Diamondbacks bats, Smith is not completely uninteresting in the top spot. He was supposed to be more than he is. In 228 plate appearances last year, he hit 7 home runs, had a terrible below the Mendoza line batting average, weak triple slash, created runs 19% worse than average. Year before in 277 plate appearances, another pretty weak triple slash, 13% worse than average for run creation. Did have 9 home runs in 277 opportunities. Put bat on ball somewhat effectively that year. 9.9% barrels was interesting. Last year, 7.5% with 41.5% hard hits. Didn't strike out much. Did draw a lot of walks in that small sample. He's got an interesting eye at the plate. He's got an interesting ability to put the right part of the bat on the ball. It's just never really come together, but he's a little bit interesting ahead of these hitters in the leadoff spot. So for 3,000, 2,400, it's at worst a cheap way to get a Diamondback stack started. This season, he's got a home run in 17 plate appearances. He's only struck out 5.9%, 5.9% walks. It's probably like 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. Lourdes Gurriel, 4,700, 3,400, a little bit cheap. The triple slash has cooled. It's definitely come back to earth. Maybe we're not at this point where he's put things together and become a complete hitter. We're at 5 home runs. I'll still take him as the more power hitting version of himself rather than the guy who hit for average but no home runs. 167 ISO, exactly at league average for run creation. Definitely playable with the price down a little bit. Ketel Marte is a star second baseman, 307, 361, 512, a 205 ISO, 141 WRC plus, striking out at just 17.4%. By the way, Gurriel at just 15.7, and both of those are realistic compared to last year. Christian Walker up at 23.4%. That last year was just 19.2. It was in the low teens the year before, I think 17 something. But does have 7 home runs, 207 ISO, a 150 WRC plus, a very strong triple slash. Christian Walker is an excellent low strikeout player. He's just striking out a few more times so far this year. That will most likely normalize to this one, and it's already come down by 5 or 6 points over the last 2 weeks. And also making tremendous contact so far. Jock Peterson also making very, very good contact. Lefty hitter, 4,000, 2,700. We've gotten plenty of left-handed platoon-based home runs from Jock Peterson over time. 317, 451, 508 start to his year. 2 home runs over 83 plate appearances. Can absolutely sign me up for some discounted Jock Peterson, even against Dylan Cease. I like the upside. Junior Suarez hasn't been good this year. There's a lot of home runs in his track record. I'm not giving up yet, but a little bit more skippable than some of these other guys at with just 2 home runs at 233, 300, 345 so far this year. 2,900, 3,900 at third base. There are better third basemen on the slate, but there is some potential for, a little bit of power here if he snaps back into form. Last year, 12.7% barrels, 43% hard hits. Year before, 14.8%, 43.5% hard hits. It was 22 homers last year, 31 in each of 2022 and 2021. Gabriel Moreno for 3,600, 2,600. Another decent catcher. Hasn't really done a lot with the stick so far this year, but I believe in the bat. Good on base percentage, keeping his WRC plus within range of league average so far. Hasn't hit for any kind of power yet, but very cheap, 3,600, 2,600, definitely playable. Corbin Carroll has been really bad, 197, 299, 248, just burning people who drafted him in the first round in season long. I think he comes around. I'm not bailing yet. I would acquire him if I had an offer for him in a season long league. 4,900, 2,900. I think the price is right. It's just a really bad spot in the lineup, and he has not shown very much at all at the plate yet this season. Blaze Alexander has 3 home runs. He's been a lot better than Corbin Carroll so far in 74 plate appearances. We'll see how that looks at the end of the season, but Alexander, cheap shortstop, 313, 405, 531. Wrapper on play at worst. Dylan Cease is a yes, especially at the DraftKings price. That's really interesting. Still a yes on FanDuel. Diamondbacks bats on the other side are yes enough, especially if they're really low owned. I think you could take some shots. Not the top priority bats by any means on the slate, but you can take some shots. They're good enough. Padres, definitely you can take some shots with their bats against Slade Ciccone. I would roll some Ciccone value shares from the bargain bin at 66 on DraftKings, and I have no idea where 10-1 came from on FanDuel. That's just a bonkers price that you shouldn't play. Just 2 games to go. So we've been waiting all show to talk about JP Sears. 6,100 on DraftKings, 7,900 on FanDuel. Projects out pretty well. He's got a 4.64 ERA and a 5.01 xFIP this year. Neither of those are good, but surely he was better last year if we're going to have him projecting. Well, no, 4.54 ERA with a 5.10 xFIP last year. The year before, though, 3.86, 4.57. Not that much better in years past. But within all of that, he's spiked some interesting DFS games. He's got some actual talent on the mound. He's got a 105.32 by Stuff Plus, over 33 innings and 6 starts for the full arsenal. It's an above average rating. It's a very small sample. Last year, he was up for strikeouts at 21.9%. Had an 11.3% swinging strike rate, 25.5% CSW. This year, 11% swinging, 27.5%, actually throwing a few more strikes that have resulted in fewer strikeouts in a small sample. I'm not trying to sell anybody JP Sears as a Cy Young winner. I'm not even saying he's necessarily a good pitcher. I am saying that he's got a spectacular matchup. There are potentially a bunch of strikeouts on the board for him. I think he could have a good game here. Last time out against the Orioles, struck out 8 hitters in 6 1/3. That's all I want to tell you about that game. He gave up 3 home runs and 7 earned runs on 8 hits over 6 1/3. Wasn't a good start. The 8 strikeouts are encouraging, but it was obviously a meltdown of a start. What is kind of interesting is that they just, he went 6 1/3. Maybe all 3 home runs and all the runs came in the last couple of hitters. I didn't actually look at it. But the fact that he gave up that line and still managed to pitch 6 1/3 helps erase a little bit of it with 8 strikeouts, but that was a disaster. Start before that, he faced my Yankees. Lasted 6 innings. Gave up 3 hits. Struck out 7. But obviously the Yankees did to him, way worse than the Orioles must have, right? No, wait, 0 earned runs on 3 hits over 6 innings. He was really good against the Yanks at Yankee Stadium. That was his best start of the season. He also went 6 1/3 against the Rangers at Texas back on the 11th. 6 1/3, faced 22 hitters. He gave up just 1 hit to the Texas Rangers. Walked 3, struck out 5. Pretty effective DFS start. Was not bad, but not good against the Cardinals. 5 innings, faced 21 hitters, gave up just 1 earned run on 2 hits, but he only struck out 2, walked 3. Just a weird game. First 2 starts of the season were also weird. Struck out just 1 in each start. Gave up 4 earned in 5 2/3 to the Tigers, 5 earned in 3 2/3 to the Guardians. I get the low strikeout total against the Guardians, but not necessarily against the Tigers. Again, not a very good pitcher, but a guy who is not without talent on the mound. A lefty going up against this Marlins squad. It's an 18.4% collective strikeout rate, but 2 of their better hitters are at a 26.3 and a 25.9 this year. And some of these guys are overperforming in small samples or are just small sample based in terms of limiting their strikeouts. So I think there is another spot where there are definitely more strikeouts than what's showing in the current year numbers. And I think JP Sears has enough talent to go find them. I don't want to sell it too hard because it's such a bad pitcher, but it is a pretty compelling spot for value. I think he's going to be popular. I think it's a spot where if you do get to a big chunk of JP Sears for 6,100 on DraftKings especially, 7,900 on FanDuel is also very much in the mix. If you're building a bunch of Sears builds, grab yourself some Marlins hedge on the other side. Not a lot, just enough to offset a disaster. You do get Jazz at a 10.08 in the home run model. He's got 4 on the year with 5 stolen bases, but he's only at a 98 WRC+. He's at slashing 229, 316, 373. Just a 144 WRC+, striking out at a 26.3% clip, but making pretty good contact with a 13.3% barrel, 42.2% hard hits. I don't think we're far off the mark with Jazz for 3,200, 5,400 as their most expensive bet. Josh Bell is playable above him. 8.63 in the home run model, 2,800, 3,800 at first base. Cheap enough. He's got 4 home runs, just a 121 ISO, just a 70 WRC+. He hasn't been good at all over 140 plate appearances. This is part of the problem. It's part of why we're targeting this team. But there is a good hitter in there. Good contact last year, just an 18.6% strikeout rate this year, 21.7% with good walk rates last year and this year. So I don't think Bell is completely dead. I think he's just been a little bit lost to start the season. Had a big home run year a few years ago. Brian De La Cruz, 7.25 in the home run model, 3,900, 3,100. Pretty cheap for a guy off to a 261, 301, 433 start with a 107 WRC+, 5 homers and a steal. 12.2% barrels, 42.9% hard hits. He's putting realistic contact on the ball. Luis Arraez, we know, is a spectacular hitter in terms of singles and getting on base. Up to 299, 347, 372 after a slow start, creating runs 8% better than average. I would start with Arraez. I would build down through Jazz Chisholm, and then maybe you stop after 4, or maybe you pick your poison from the remaining players. Timmy Anderson's been just completely awful. He used to play in Chicago with Jose Abreu. Maybe he drank out of the same water bottle before Abreu left town. Terrible last year. Bad to start this season. 3,600, 2,400. Over 105 plate appearances, 222, 267, 253, .030 ISO, and a 51 WRC+. Bad. Emmanuel Rivera, 2,500, 2,200. No home runs. Nobody in the bottom of the lineup in the last 5 spots in this lineup has a home run. Let's put it that way. I'm just realizing that I didn't check if this. I don't think we have it confirmed. If it's this version of the lineup, nobody's got a home run. Yeah, that's only 12 plate appearances for Dane Myers. Maybe that's unfair. In that small sample, he's driven in 5, he scored 3, he's stolen a base, his created runs 121% better than average. Let's see what the next 212 look like. Right now, he's very cheap. Maybe you can look at him. It's a clickable option, I guess, late in the lineup. Vidal Brujan hasn't been good. 2,600, 2,200 in the infield. 256, 347, 372. Triple slash is okay. 3% worse than average creating runs. No power to speak of. No real correlated scoring ability with anybody directly connected to him in the lineup. Nick Fortes, 2,300, 2,100. Totally skippable catcher. So I think you target him with some JP Sears and a minor hedge position with the top 4 hitters in the Marlins lineup. But yeah, much stronger on the Sears side. Ryan Weathers for $6,000 on DraftKings, $7,700 on FanDuel. You could say, hey, Ryan Weathers is facing the Athletics. Kind of a similar spot, no? Ryan Weathers has fairly similar results this year. 29 2/3 over his 6 starts, 18.7% strikeout rate compared to 17.6 on the other side. He's walked a few more, but the ERA is better. The xFIP is comparable. The whip is way higher. Swinging strikes are comparable. CSW is comparable. Barrels are lower. Hard hits are lower. Exit velo is lower. He's given up fewer home runs. Stuff Plus doesn't like him as much, but that's not far below league average. I just don't think that Ryan Weathers is quite the talent on the mound that JP Sears is. Last year in 57 2/3 over 12 starts, he had a 6.55 ERA with a 5.56 xFIP. Again, Sears was not that much better, but he was better. 16.7% strikeouts, 11.3% walks. Limited in terms of strike throwing, bad whip, give up a ton of premium contact and power. Well, give up a ton of home runs in the small sample. Not as bad as I was thinking in terms of premium contact. 7.6% barrels is all right. 33.7% hard is actually pretty good. 89.2 miles an hour of exit velo is not bad, but this is not a good pitcher overall. In his starts this season, best game of the year was definitely a 10 strikeout game against the Giants that kind of came out of nowhere. That was his middle start on the 16th. His first start of the year, he struck out 5 against the Pirates over 4 innings. Gave up 3 earned on 2 walks on 7 hits. Faced St. Louis, gave up 1 earned, 3 runs total on 3 hits, struck out 6, walked 3. Has 2 1 strikeout games on either side of the 10 strikeout game. One was against the Yanks, one was against Atlanta. Another terrible pitcher who got through 5, just like JP Sears. He got through 5 innings and gave up no runs on 3 hits to the Yankees, but he only struck out 1, walked 3. And then against Atlanta, he gave up 1 home run, 3 earned runs on 6 hits, struck out 1, walked 3. Most recent start against the Nationals only struck out 3, walked 3, 6 earned on 5 hits. I have a little bit more respect, I think, for this. Nah, do I want to go on record saying that? I don't think I want to say that. I was going to say I have more respect for this Athletics lineup. It's really probably a tie. Esteury Ruiz at the top of the lineup is definitely interesting at 42.29 against the lefty. He's been productive, 250, 333, 528. He's stolen 4 bases, hit 2 home runs, 145 WRC plus with a 278 ISO, making bonkers premium contact for a guy who had no premium contact whatsoever last year or the tiny sample the year before. I don't think he's this power hitter, but he was doing it in the minors before they called him back up as well. So, maybe something clicked. But we're looking for him to get on base, provide correlated scoring, maybe some stolen base advantage with Tyler Nevin for only 2,600 at the corners. Third base and outfield on DraftKings, corners on FanDuel, 2,600 on both sites. Nevin has 4 home runs, a stolen base, a 156 WRC plus over 88 plate appearances. Very effective triple slash so far, making decent contact, low strikeout rate. Brent Rooker swings and misses way, way too much, but when he hits. When he connects, he hits. 5 home runs on the season, a 265 ISO, 16.2% barrels, 48.6% hard hits. Definitely a playable part of athletic stacks. Their best number at 11.56 in the home run model. Shea Langoliers has power at catcher for a cheap price, 3,700 hitting cleanup most likely. On DraftKings, 2,700 on FanDuel, 8.95 in the home run model. He's got 6 on the season. Basically all he does. 223 ISO, 25% worse than average creating runs. But if you're just looking to buy some cheap power upside, it's definitely on the board for Shea Langoliers. Abraham Toro, Max Schumann, JJ Bleday, Darryl Arnaiz, and Nick Allen. Nobody's real idea of a good way to round out a lineup, but Abraham Toro's been a little bit productive over 99 plate appearances. He's got a 124 WRC plus, 3 homers and a steal. Max Schumann, only 28 plate appearances, got a home run and a stolen base. Everything else has been lousy so far. Over 116, Bleday has 3 homers from the left side. A little bit of production, okay lefty bat, but I don't love grabbing a 7-hitting lefty in this spot. You've got many more capable righties. Darrell Hernaiz and Nick Allen, very low end, both below the Mendoza line in 57 and 77 plate appearances. If you're stacking athletics, it's not the best spot in the world, but it's, I think, the more gettable side of this one. They are very cheap. They'll provide you some value. I can't imagine they're that popular. Rooker, Langoliers, and Estuary probably go in. Nevin probably goes in. And then probably one of Toro, Schumann, or Bleday. I don't know how many times I build like from the middle down with this team. It's mostly just the top hitters. So JP Sears for value is a yes. And Ryan Weathers for me is a no, but you can see it in the projection. Even the projection is not all that far off. So at the 6,000 price, that's what I wanted to get to. He is in the bargain bin on DraftKings. All right, him, Paddock, Ciccone, JP Sears, all mix and match bargain bin plays with realistic upside to pay off those prices. At 77 on FanDuel, I would just rather pay the 79 for Sears on the other side. If you're building out 150 and you want to get a ton of value shares, sure, you can grab a few, but it's the lower end of the value plays. And then, some hedge bats for the Marlins and some A's bats just in general. And now the fearsome showdown at the end of the slate, the 10-10 game, the late night hammer. Oh, JD Davis is back for Oakland? That is interesting, Larry. What is the confirmed lineup there? Let me see. A's lineup confirmed a couple minutes ago is Estuary Ruiz, Nevin hitting second, Abraham Toro up to third with Rooker hitting cleanup, then Davis, then Langoliers. That's an interesting stretch. That makes this lineup actually a little bit better. Let's see if... I do want to look at that real quick. All right. I'll just take it like this. And we'll type in what we need to. Evan, and then, what did I say? It's Toro up to third. Langoliers was down here. And it was Rooker at cleanup. And J, I think he's got initials like that. JD Davis. And I think it was Langoliers there. Langoliers. Oh, fuck, it was Schumann. What's that guy's name? Max Schumann? Hernaiz and Harris. Who's Harris? Brett Harris. Thank you, Larry. I knew you had said it in there. All right, let's go back to that real quick. It's a disaster. All right. If that guy's name is Brett Harris, and then I guess I misspelled Schumann. Is it UE? It matters less than the guys that I wanted to talk about at the top, but we'll at least correct that. We'll worry about Brett Harris another time. Doesn't look like he's on the slate. If that is his name, if that's not his name, then so be it. But the guys in the middle of the lineup this week. Oh fuck! I forgot to change Brett. Bear with me, guys. I'll get this right. All right, so Abraham Toro moving to the 3 spot makes him a little bit more interesting for 3,400, especially where he's got second base eligibility. You get a lot of multi-position on DraftKings out of this team, actually, for very cheap prices. This makes the Athletics a lot more interesting now on DraftKings. JD Davis is a tremendous, tremendous hitter against lefties, especially bad lefties, and he's always been really good at putting bat on ball. Last year, 15.6% barrel. Nope, sorry, that's Rooker. 9.5% barrel, 44.4% hard hits. Year before, 16.2% barrel, 55.6% hard hits. This year, in a small sample of 55 plate appearances, he's at 11.4% and 45.7% hard hits. Just 2 home runs. I think they came in the same game. I think that was against a bad lefty. And at 196, 255, 373. He hasn't been impressive at all this year. Last year, he did hit 18 home runs in 546, but underperformed my expectations anyway. I was looking for the breakout from him last year. He's never gotten to the hitter that he should be given the contact that he makes at the plate. But against this pitcher for just 3,700, 2,700 with multi-position on both sides at the corners, that makes him another interesting right-handed bat with a little bit of power upside in this lineup. They just got deeper. Moving Langoliers down to the 6th spot is perfectly fine for what he does. You're just home run hunting again with him. Toro becomes more interesting in the 3 spot. And as I was saying, at second base, that plays. So this is now remember, I stopped short before and I was like, and then whoever. That's now like a 6-man group that has some interesting bats in it. Especially with that cheap multi-position with all those guys at 2 positions on DraftKings. That's an interesting value stack. Dado Hernandez and Max Schumann haven't done much to justify any kind of love outside of being really, really cheap with multi-position. But these 3 guys are definitely interesting. Glad you called that out, Larry. We'll wind this thing down now. 5:48. Handful of people here still hanging out with us. Appreciate it. Hit the like button if you haven't. Harris isn't on DK. Yeah, so probably is the right Harris. Probably just not on either slate. So last game of the night, no confirmed lineups yet, it doesn't look like. I don't think we go to pitching on either side. If you do, I think it's clear that Charlie Morton is your choice. And if you're building a ton of lineups and you just want to mix things up by throwing in some Charlie Morton shares, it's fine. He is good enough to beat this Dodgers team, certainly. Even this year, this version of him, 3.60 ERA and a 3.77 xFIP in his 5 starts, 30 innings, 23.3% strikeout rate. It's just he's much more likely to get beaten by them or at least, give up. What's a good start for Charlie Morton here? 3 runs, 3 to 5 runs over 6 innings. How many times is he booking you the 6-inning quality start at 88 on FanDuel? I do think the Braves have a good shot to win this game. I think he could get you 5 decent innings for 76 on DraftKings and maybe a win. But there's also a tremendous downside that he just falls into the tiger trap, lands on the spikes, and he's just gored to death by this ridiculously talented Dodgers lineup, and you go bust. There are other options for that kind of a price on this deep pitching slate. So just takes him off the board for me. And then Gavin Stone just isn't that good, and the Braves look pretty killer against him, so I'd much rather grab Braves bats. Stone over 5 starts, 25 innings, 16.5% strikeouts, 11% walks, a 4.68 ERA, a 4.75 xFIP. Hasn't been bad for giving up power so far this year. Last year, a 5.26% home run rate on 8.7% barrels in 31 innings over 4 starts. No sample from before that. This is the Braves. I'm going to believe their power ratings in the home run model here. Top team for power on the board, top team for projections on the board. They're a little bit underpriced for who they are, too, because you're getting Riley and Olsen at a discount in the heart of the lineup. Neither one of these guys is far off. I know the results have been a little bit far off. Riley at 235, 311, 387 with a 99 WRC plus, just a 151 ISO and 2 home runs. And then Olsen at 206, 323, 383, 99 WRC plus, 178 ISO and 3 home runs. But if we look at the premium contact, we're not that far off. Strikeouts are up a little bit, very slightly, but it's not that bad. I don't think it's justifiable to have these guys as cheap as they are for as much power and upside as they provided over the past couple of seasons. Matty Olson, the home run pick of the day at 14.41. Ronnie Acuna slightly ahead of him at 14.97, despite having only 1 home run this season. His hard hit is definitely down. His barrels are definitely down. I'm not going to say something going on, like nefarious, something going on, like warning signs. Just a little bit of a dip right now, but I think he'll be perfectly fine. 368 on base, still creating runs, 6% better than average. The power is just a little bit out right now. 13 stolen bases. His price has come down by $300 on FanDuel, holding strong at $6,400 on DraftKings. Still worth it. Still happy to go there. Still believe in the mark in the home run tool. Ozzie Albies, 10.90, best second baseman in baseball, 330, 392, 500 over 97 plate appearances. Just continued excellence from Albies. 5,400 on DraftKings, a little bit cheap. $3,900 is correct on FanDuel. Marcell Ozuna finally is the second most expensive player on this team on DraftKings and the most expensive player on this team on FanDuel. 9 home runs on the season, 321, 403, 624, continuing a tremendous year from last year. Hasn't hit a home run in, like a week maybe? Got out of the gate really, really quickly, but the contact has been tremendous. The production has been tremendous. He's well worth getting to. It's just now we're paying a premium to roster Marcell Ozuna. I'd rather pay the discount and get to Austin Riley and Matt Olson and take cheaper outfielders with similar talent from other teams. Orlando Arcia, 3,900, 2,800. Hasn't been great yet this season, but 17 homers last year. A productive enough triple slash, not really in terms of the on base, just a 94 WRC plus. But I believe in the talent for the cheap price. Michael Harris at 49.33. Sneaky at the bottom of the lineup. 3 home runs, 5 stolen bases. Star caliber talent, 116 WRC plus. Tremendous player to get that late in the lineup. Travis d'Arnaud, 13% barrels, 50% hard hits, 5 home runs, slashing 282, 358, 592, filling in pretty capably for Sean Murphy. And Jared Kelenic hasn't hit for any power, but a decent triple slash over 72 chances. It's been all right, a playable enough lefty part for 3,100, 2,400 in a still expensive lineup, even with the discounts. And then the Dodgers are the Dodgers. It's Charlie Morton on the other side, but it might not really matter. Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith. It's a 4-man, just absolute group of superstars. I'm just lumping Will Smith in with that group from now on. 5,100, 3,700. He's probably the best hitting catcher in baseball. 355, 395, 555 so far this year. 200 ISO. Maybe, the Contreras brothers have something to say about that, but he's been terrific and terrific over time. 24 home runs 2 years ago, 19 home runs last year. Lower end triple slash numbers, but very, very effective on base numbers. An excellent run creator. Very good power bat. If he's going to hit for average this year too, forget about it. 14.5% strikeout rate this year. Last year it was at 16.1 with even more walks. Makes terrific contact at the plate. Will Smith is a dynamite catcher option. He's following up the best 3-man group in baseball with Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and an underperforming Freddie Freeman. Freddie's still getting on at a 416 clip. It's ridiculous to say underperforming about a guy creating runs 44% better than average, but he is. His average is down a little bit. The on base is right where it should be, but the slug is down. The ISO is down. The home run output is down, and he's still fantastic. It's got his price down at 5,600, 3,400. He's discounted unfairly like Austin Riley and Matt Olson on the other side. Even more unfairly for Freeman, considering how good he's been for run creation, how much he's getting on base, and what he does at the plate. Ohtani has 7 homers and 5 steals. Mookie's got 6 homers, 8 stolen bases. Mookie Betts, over 156 plate appearances, which probably leads baseball, has been 115% better than average creating runs. It's getting ridiculous. 6 home runs, 8 stolen bases for Mookie. A 481 on base. Getting on base nearly half of his plate appearances so far. Max Muncy, Teoscar Hernandez, tremendous power bats with a lot of strikeouts, but a healthy lefty-righty combo in the heart of the lineup. 6.40 in the home run model for Muncy. 6.04 for Teoscar. A little bit of less home run upside on the Dodgers side of this thing. Morton is good at limiting premium contact, limiting power over time. Last year, just a 1.96% home run rate allowed on 38.8% hard hits, 7.8% barrels. This year, in a small sample, just 1.67 on 7.6% barrels, 31.6% hard hits. A talented super veteran pitcher at this point. I think he's in his 40s. How old is Charlie Morton? I want to say 41, but I don't know that he's that old. 40. 40 and a half. So we're on the back end of the career with Morton. That's why there's, some of this enthusiasm about any kind of numbers is a little bit checked, and the opponent is obviously tremendous. But as I was getting at, you can see it in the home run model. He does cut these Dodgers down to size a little bit, especially by comparison to some of the numbers we get for the Braves on the other side. So between the two very expensive, very high-end teams, I kind of prefer the Braves side. You get the visiting team extra, potential inning in the 9th. A little bit of a boost from that, but the Dodgers are a tremendous option up and down. James Outman, Andy Pajas, and Gavin Lux to round out the lineup. Lux and Outman have underperformed expectations so far. A couple of decent young lefty bats, though. I expect a full turnaround for both of those players. They're better than they've been here and here. And then Andy Pias over 60 plate appearances has completely delivered on his promise. 9.1% barrels, 47.7% hard hits, and a limited number of batted ball events. 3 home runs and a 255 ISO so far. Absolutely can fire away with Andy Pias in stacks of Dodgers. Helps make the other guys cheaper. With that, you guys, we're going to take one quick last look at the pitching board, and then I got to get out of here and get some updates in. The Braves will break out one day. One of these days. Oh, thanks, Aaron Davis. Aaron Davis just filling in on Brett Harris. I don't think he's on either slate anyway, but just to round off that A's lineup in terms of who might be down there turning things over. 26-year-old playing at AAA, 289 with 1 home run per Aaron Davis. A 7th-round pick out of Gonzaga. Carlos, I really like that Braves stack as well. Yep. For sure, the Braves. What did I put them together with in my placeholder? It's JP Sears with the Braves, and I think I might have gone to the Mariners with that little power that we were showing in the model. Take a contrarian spot against Ronel Blanco. Them and the Cards are going to be a popular build, I would expect. The Dodgers and the Cards. Cards are going to be really popular. Cards are so primed to let everybody down again. It's just what they do. All right, so to round this thing off, Sonny Gray at a very high price in a spectacular matchup, pitching really, really well, and is a good pitcher over time. Has let us down in spots before, but I think you're happy to pay the salary at a high number. Tanner Bybee, too cheap at $8,500 on DraftKings. George Kirby, too cheap at $7,800 on DraftKings. Tanner Houck, way too cheap at $8,100 on DraftKings. Any one of those 3 guys can absolutely stand as an SP1 in lineups at those prices. I think you can get a lot of legs at mixing and matching these guys, the 7s and the 8s on the DK board, or if you're just mixing and matching these guys with some of the bargain bin guys in the 6s, I think you're doing a lot of interesting things with some of those lineups. I probably wouldn't go double discount. Like Ciccone Sears is pretty thin with all these guys available, and especially when they're at such good prices. But any of these guys combined with one of these green guys, or any 2 of these guys mixed together, I think is a good start on DraftKings. Bybee at 94 on FanDuel, George Kirby at 96, even against the Astros on FanDuel, I'm willing to play. Stroman against the Tigers at 97 is a little bit more of a tall order. He projects out just fine, but I think he's got a lower ceiling than some of these other guys. Tanner Houck is a difficult pill to swallow at 11-3, but he's justified that. Twins are scoring a lot of runs, but there are some sneaky strikeouts in that lineup. And again, at 8,100, it's just a completely different price and a broken price on DraftKings. That's a killer spot. Ronel Blanco, kind of low faith for me. 10-8, I don't really want to pay it on FanDuel. As bad as the Mariners been, as many strikeouts as might be lurking in that lineup for him, with a little bit of sneaky power showing through the model for the Mariners side, maybe it's a get-right spot and a surprise spot for everybody who goes to Blanco. At 8,200, different story on DraftKings. Totally playable on DraftKings. A lot of upside, actually, at that price on DraftKings. So, again, story of 2 different prices. Sears is a value pitcher that I like on both sides for the matchup and for the talent level. I think he's the most talented of these bargain bin pitchers. But I do think these guys are in the mix as well. 6,000 for Ciccone. I'll take the shots on against the Padres. 63 for Paddock is my least favorite of those discount guys, just because of the matchup against the Red Sox. I think the Red Sox are a little undervalued in this spot. Weathers, at least he gets a good opponent in Oakland, but I would definitely hedge Weathers with Oakland stacks, and I would probably also hedge some JP Sears with Miami stacks in a large sample. Dylan Cease from the middle here. You can see where he lands on the FanDuel price-wise. It's a little bit aggressively priced compared to some of the guys higher up. But as I said before, I think he has an equivalent ceiling to Sonny Gray at the top of the board. So I think you can pay that price for him. At 93, I think he's a little bit discounted on the DraftKings slate. Ciccone is ridiculously priced, by the way, on FanDuel at 10-1. That just doesn't make any sense. These guys are better values, but I don't think you need to go there. I'd just rather get to either a high-priced pitcher or take my JP Sears shots. 7,700, you're not getting a giant discount. 200 less for Ryan Weathers on the other side, maybe. Maybe I would just go to $8,100 Reese Olson against my Yankees. I think there's capability there to put up a good game. He's just not low enough price to be in this mix on DraftKings, and he doesn't project quite well enough to be in that mix on DraftKings. But I do think there's maybe a little bit of lurking upside for that money. Morton, just for the opponent, is kind of a tough one. And then all these guys at the bottom, I don't really like. I do think there's talent, especially for strikeouts in Soriano. I just hate the opponent for him, and I kind of think the Guardians are a little bit frisky for a lot of hits, some runs, maybe a little bit of power against. So I don't like the spot for him, and I wouldn't play these three guys. Home run board. I believe that's Acuna at the top of the board. Yeah, 14.97. 3 Braves off the top. Acuna and a discounted Olsen, a discounted Riley. I'll take it. Julio, next one up. Remember, a little bit of lurking power for Seattle. You also get Cal Raleigh in here. You get Garver right there. Can't combine them on DraftKings, but you can on FanDuel. Polanco, if you believe, at 8.85. The power is still real. Mitch Haniger at 8.62. Even Luke Raley at 7.64, way down lineup, but very, very cheap. I forget whether he's in the confirmed lineup. Not that many guys over 10, but we've got some guys spiking well over 10 at the top of the board. Just 14 total hitters, including everybody who's on the board here. A little bit of power showing for the Yanks, as usual. Soto and Judge both over the magic number. Stanton not far behind. Power showing through for the Red Sox. Let's not forget to mention one more time, Rafi Devers at 3,200 and whatever his price was, 52, 50, low fives on DraftKings. Makes for a tremendous one-off at third base in my mind, and I do think that the Red Sox are pretty stackable here. You've got Tyler O'Neill at 8.68, maybe not getting enough credit for power upside to go with Rafi Devers in a stack. Brent Rooker above the magic number on the other side of on the Oakland side of that Oakland-Miami game. But overall, Braves, Mariners for a little bit of sneaky pop. You do have Jazz Chisholm over the magic number on the Miami side of the Miami-Oakland game to throw back in Brent Rooker's face. Again, I do think you're hedging those cheapo pitcher bets. But it's a really, really interesting slate. I'm looking forward to building some lineups after I get everything updated over the next little bit. Cujo, thank you, buddy. Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it, you guys. Is Paddock the cutoff? Not necessarily, because Weathers is in the mix for DK. I do think Olsen's playable on DK. It's probably Olsen. But it's like limited enthusiasm around around Weathers, around some of the value guys. So that's probably where the cutoff is. That said, hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't. If you like the show, jump into the Discord, hang out with us. We're around. Projections and everything over the weekend. No shows over the weekend. I'll let you know in the notes, potentially limited updates depending on what time the slates are tomorrow. I'll be going to the Yankee game, but otherwise I'll be around all weekend. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. We'll see you on Monday for the next show. Adios.